Your mic.
Alrighty, we're gonna start our meeting here to order. We do have a quorum. Heather has been excused for the meeting, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Happy belated birthday.
Alright, do we have any amendments to the agenda? Alright. We have public comment. Do we have anyone here for public comment? Oh boy, come on up. Name and address.
You can probably hear me without being here, but I'll.
We want the people at home to hear you.
Oh, yeah. I'm Mark Blake from the notoriously famous Stackpole Road. We had a big event this weekend, trash pickup day, which we have most every year. And unlike some of our big townwide events, you know, Memorial Day, Durham Home Days, this one here was probably not as glamorous, but nevertheless, mostly important, maybe even more important in some ways. Kind of what bothered me about it is we didn't have anybody from the Board of Selectmen or our new town manager show up. In years past, we've always had somebody show up. I think Jerry did a couple of years ago. He showed up when he first came on. And unfortunately for Josh, he showed up to get rid of his stuff. And unfortunately for him, it was my station. So I got to gnaw on his ear a little bit. But he seems to have them both, so I don't think it beat him up too bad. But I think it would be good for somebody on this board to show up at those things. You won't believe the stuff you might learn. It's, especially since we're looking at other things right now. So it's kind of disappointing to see that nobody showed up, and it was a bad day. So nobody wanted to show up, but unfortunately that's the way it works. So I'd just like to put that out there, so maybe in the future, since I've been involved on that side or this side of the table, there's always been somebody show up, sometimes two people. You don't have to stay all day, you don't have to work, sometimes we don't need you to help, but it would be nice just to have that exposure. The other thing that I noticed, and this is kind of not so much for our guys as it would be maybe for the Casella people, but I know that when we have our roadside trash picked up, we're supposed to have a certain weight limit, and if we got recyclables, they're supposed to be cut down and do whatever to fit. We don't seem to do that with our trash pickup days, and we have full-size couches come in and lazy boys, and I think we actually had a rabbit cage that was 8 feet long. It's, especially after all that rain, all that stuff soaked up with water pretty good. And these guys never complained, nobody ever seems to, but they were struggling sometimes to get that stuff out of the truck or up off the trailer and get it into the back of that smasher. Granted, once it's in there, that thing will chew them up like Cheerios and milk, but they shouldn't have to do that, especially since we require less of that with our roadside pickup. And we don't want them guys getting hurt anymore, we want our guys getting hurt, because they get hurt, their cost goes up, eventually that trickles back to us. And we know cost usually goes up anyways. So just a couple things I'd like to thought about. When we have our big pieces like our stoves or our washers and dryers, it's not the same because we don't only have to lift them so much by hand because you roll them off the back of the truck or roll them off the trailer, and the guys, there's 2 or 3 guys there, they roll it into the bucket of the loader, and that does all the heavy lifting. So it's not as strenuous in that respect. So it's just something that, and like I said, that's on the Casella side. Maybe they don't care, that's up to them. But I would think that we would require maybe those couches, maybe you cut them down to the size of a skid, 2 or 3 pieces. I think that only makes sense. It would also speed up the process because you wouldn't be wrestling them trying to get them in the back of that smasher. So just a couple things to think about. Like I said, you don't have to be there every time. Don't have to be there all day. Don't even have to work. But since you guys are the leaders, the top 6 leaders of this town, you would think somebody would be there and show that they've been there. And you might learn something talking to the guys too, because they don't all work in town. So it would be a good thing. The other thing, I'd like to thank Calvin, because he did buy his guys food. I thought Casella's was supposed to, but apparently they went out to breakfast and came back in time for lunch and decided not to buy pizza. So I don't know what happened there, but at least we didn't go away hungry. So anyways, that's That's my spiel from the Stackpole Road.
Yeah, well, thank you for your feedback.
Sorry about that, Josh. I hope I didn't steal it all.
I'm gonna tease you, but you're.
That's okay. All right. I'm gonna stay just for a minute or two.
Yeah, no worries. Do we have any other public comment for the evening? Alright, seeing none. I just need a motion to approve our previous meeting minutes.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do we have any discussion? Alright, seeing none, all in favor? Any opposition? Seeing none, passes. We have no old business, so we're gonna go into new business, and we're gonna give our fire chief the floor here.
Thank you.
I'm guessing that's what everyone's here for, and they're not just here to hang out with us.
So, that's how important and well-received the select board meetings are.
Yeah.
Tonight I need to recognize, it's the fire chief's job, excuse me, to recognize when members of the department do something extraordinary, above and beyond, and that's tonight. First, before we get to the double recognition, I need Martin Crusade to come up, and his wife Renee. Martin's been with us a year now. As you can see, he hasn't even gotten his badge yet. And after EMT school, which we'll get to, Martin decided to at least take his family on vacation after 6 months of that. And what he didn't know at the banquet was his brothers, his members, voted him Rookie of the Year. So on behalf of the fire department, on behalf of the brothers, I present this to you, Martin Crusade, as Rookie of the Year 2024. Congratulations. That means something to the general public. When your brothers know, you can't fool your brothers, right? So when they vote you Rookie of the Year for showing up, enthusiasm, funny enough, him and Kevin were out 2 a.m. this morning. You can't train that, you can't teach that. So it's appreciative, it really is. So because he's been here a year, he does get a badge. This one is the 75th anniversary badge, and if I can have, I'll trade you, if I can have Renee put that on you. We'll practice, we won't stab him. And if we do draw blood, I know a new EMT that's ready to go, some direct pressure. It's already smiling. I thought Martin had the Boston accent. Apparently it's Hamburg, Germany is where his accent's from. Came over, they bought Matty Lane off of Bowie Hill. Nice, look at that, huh? Also, this goes with your 75th pin. Appreciate it, don't go anywhere. Kevin, front and center. You probably know Kevin Merrill because he's been recognized before for his response for the, pick a side, for the Lewiston shooting. He was recognized. So I'm just gonna throw out some numbers for these two. I needed volunteers to go to EMT school. Lisbon EMS, who we partner with, said, hey chief, if you know of anyone that wants, for free, go to EMT school in the fall, we'll pay for everything. And I suckered literally these two into it. And what they signed on for was 6 months, no pay, every Monday night, starting in October, all through the holidays, every Monday night for 4 hours, every Saturday for 6 or 7 hours, hands-on, through holidays, through Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's. They had a 50% dropout rate in the school. They had a 25% failure rate for taking the national exam, and both of them passed for Durham, last man standing for their EMT. I almost need to recognize Kevin Merrill, again, because a buddy of his recently called him up, who was in Florida, and said, hey, I got some medical questions for you. And he says, don't ask me, I just, right? 40 minutes on the phone trying to convince his buddy, like, hey, these are signs and symptoms. I need you to go to the hospital. Like, I know you're getting ready to get on a cruise. I need you to go to the hospital. He convinced his buddy to go and saved his life. If he'd gotten on the boat, they don't, and he's in the audience. They don't have those procedures on the boat. He saved his buddy's life just by paying attention. I'd be remiss not to tell you a family affair, really, for study time, computer time. If you see the guys in the back, they all know, they might have even Did they take the test for you or not? No? All right.
That's why you passed.
And another thing with numbers, 80%. You couldn't get below an 80%. So if y'all think back to school, there was some days, but 80% or above was passing. And they both became EMTs. So on behalf of the fire department, on behalf of the town, certainly the select board, we appreciate you. Again, they were both on a medical at 2 o'clock this morning. I wasn't there, but these guys are picking up the slack. There's no higher calling than being an EMT and emergency management in the back of an ambulance. And they both need to be recognized tonight. So these EMT pins, slightly gold, will be attached to your uniform, and it is my pleasure to do so. That will go there. Thank you, sir. Congratulations. Thank you. On behalf Ladies Auxiliary and Family has made it so that we're gonna go across the street, if you want, to the Eureka Center for some light fare, drinks. There you go. Yeah, food,
I'm busy.
non-adult. But thank you, Mr. Chair, for taking the time.
Well, no, thank you guys. The service you provide to our community is immeasurable, and I think it's really great that we can do this, at least a little bit of recognition. But there's a lot of people who live here who can recognize the Durham EMS and fire as life-saving or structure-saving, and just keep up the good work. And we're lucky to have you both, and have all of you in the audience as well. So, and we're lucky to have Chief.
Yeah, there it is. Thank you. So we will get out of the way. Please join us and Kevin and Martin's family across the street. Unless you're from Staten. I know, Martin. I see you. Notorious. I see you. Mr. Chair, do you need anything else?
No, we're good. Thanks, Chief.
I'm gonna take your whole line.
Perfect.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Must have been something you said.
It happens to me a lot. They heard food, yeah, that gets them too.
They heard drinks too, I took care of that before I come over.
I heard you.
This looks like the regular.
Yeah.
I need to stay for anything else?
Alrighty, well, the next thing on our agenda here is going to be our town center facilities presentation. Jerry, you want to get this introduced here?
Yeah, I'd like to introduce Christina Egan and Kristen Rodman of GP Cog.
Thank you, Mark.
They did a facility studies. We got a grant through GP Cog, and they facilitated a study with a steering committee and with George Tabarge about the town, what we're calling the town center. And they're going to come up and present how that went and some of the findings and what next steps might be after they give their presentation.
Okay, great.
Perfect.
Chair, should I?
We just got to get you close enough for the microphone to pick you
Does
up.
this come off? No.
It's not attached to the table. There we go.
That seems a little strange, but that's all right. It's easier for me to be over here if that's all right with you guys.
Whatever works for you.
All right, so I'm Christina Egan. I'm the Executive Director of the Greater Portland Council of Governments. I'm here with our Senior Planner, Christian Rodman, who's the brains behind all of this, and he's here for whatever questions that you have. I'm really delighted, Phyllis, that you're here because you're part of the advisory committee. I thought more people would be here tonight. I'm glad it's going to be recorded because what we tried to do is get for you the input that we received from many, many people. And we actually had an extraordinary amount of residents that weighed in on this process. So what we're going to do tonight is I'm going to run you through a presentation that tells you what your residents said about the town center. We're calling it town center even though you don't actually have a commonly held name for this area. So it's just a stand-in. You might call it something else later. But you had a lot of residents that have a lot of ideas about it. And we're going to tell you about what those ideas are. And then at the end of this, I'm going to try to lead you workshop style to see whether the select board actually has some priorities. And if you can settle on some priorities, then it'll be easy for us to define what the next steps are for you. But there are a lot of options. So I'm just going to warn you on that. All right. So Our scope of work started with looking at the intersection of routes 9 and 136 of ways to try to improve the safety. And from there, it kind of expanded to looking at your other facilities because, of course, the Eureka Center is right there and it may have an impact on the intersection. And we wanted to look at the whole parcel here to understand how the transportation works, but also how the facilities work with one another. So the bulk of our work has been to understand what the community thinks about this. How well is the fire station working, Eureka Station working, Town Hall, Little League Field, this whole area? How well is it working for your residents? And then start to develop a vision. Now, a vision can be very modest. Your vision could be, actually, the problems aren't too bad, we're not going to do anything, right? You've got a status quo option. It can be, hey, we're going to do these small, low-cost things, or we're going to do this one big thing that needs to be done. And I'm going to tell you, you got a lot of opinions out there on that. So first, we'll just start with what I think is probably the simplest and most straightforward. There are some safety concerns around this intersection. We heard from people that they were worried when they're taking that right-hand turn, if they can't see, if somebody else is taking a left. We did look at whether this was a place where a lot of crashes were happening because that could justify some real investment in infrastructure. It did not come back as a high crash location, so MainDOT has told us it's not a strong candidate for a major realignment, right? Like you could cut off the corner and make it a T. That's pretty expensive, and MainDOT's saying that they're not going to really pay for that. If the town wanted to do it, you could negotiate that with MainDOT, but we think that, and MainDOT thinks that you could accomplish some safety improvements with paint. So this is a diagram that actually MainDOT worked up for this project and for Jerry. Yep. And are willing to kind of consider and go forward with. And Jerry, I'm just going to stop here and see, is there anything you wanted to add about your conversations with MainDOT?
That exact picture went to the regional traffic engineer, or the regional engineer at Calvin, right, today, to look at. Calvin's been in touch. They will look at that to see if that is something that they can do.
Yep. So just fast forwarding to the end of my presentation, one of my first questions for you is, do you want to see this improvement? And you can answer yes or no, and then we can move forward from there. All right, now I'm going to get into the more complicated pieces. So I'm going to tell you first about the community engagement. This was overseen by an advisory committee, which thank goodness we have a couple members here. And we also had different community meetings, facility meetings that some of you as select board members participated in. After we formed the advisory committee, which was really to oversee the public engagement process, to make sure we were reaching out to all aspects of the community and to kind of guide us along the way, we did a public survey. And the survey was advised, again, by this group. They came up with a lot of the questions, and then we did it, put our survey expertise to it to figure out how to ask the questions. Then we had, and I'm going to tell you the results of that. Then we had a stakeholder meeting that included folks that were really tied to the different facilities, so that we made sure that the users of the facilities were telling us how they used it, what the problems were when they were using it, what they hoped for that facility. And you can see the stakeholders listed here. And then we had a public visioning session, which was really like, let your artists loose. And we gave people a piece of paper and they could draw what their visions were. And I'm going to share some of those with you. These are the members of the advisory committee, and Phyllis is here. We had really wide expertise here, and we also had a lot of long-term residents who have watched how changes have happened in Durham and really gave voice to people who are on lower incomes, may not have as much money, or are getting forced out of town. So we had a really good mix of kind of newcomers to Durham and people who have been here for a long time. A lot of different perspectives were represented on the advisory committee. This was appointed by the select board, I believe, last year. Is that right, Joe? Yeah. Here's the results of the public survey. First of all, we had 350 results. So 350 people, which I have to tell you, for a size of Durham, we have never gotten that percentage rate before on one of our surveys. So you guys really knocked it out of the park. And it was a lot due to the advisory committee because they put the paper surveys at the stores, and you had them at the election. One of the churches. We also had it online. So you got a lot of responses. We asked a few different big questions. First off was, how often do you use these main facilities? You can see a lot of people, the vast majority of people use the town office. several times a year. For the Eureka Center, you don't have quite as many people. You have a lot of people saying never. I've never even used the Eureka Center. And the same thing for the fire station. So I've been in this fire station. I can't count how many times during this project, but that's because you use it as a meeting space for your close-in stakeholders, your select board meetings, your committees, etc. But most of your residents don't use it that way. So how important are town facilities for these different purposes, whether it's public service, meeting, or recreation? And what you can see is that people are ranking these different purposes as of some importance. So everybody recognizes that your town facilities are playing an important part in the community, even if they're not using them. Then we ask the question, all right, we know we would love to improve everything, but it costs money. So how much would you support spending money on making improvements? And we didn't define exactly what their improvements were. So this is a general question to just take the appetite of the town. What we found is there's, quite a bit of opposition. The red is the opposition, right? Those are folks that are saying, I don't really want to pay any money, right? This is like strongly opposed or somewhat opposed. And then you've got support, somewhat support, and strongly support. And it's close to opposed, but if you took a vote without the green column, you wouldn't be moving forward with anything. The green column, we believe, this is people saying, I need more information before I can decide, which is legit, right? We didn't tell you how much it was going to cost. We didn't tell you what the improvements were. We just wanted to take the general sense of people. Christian, anything to add to that?
No, green is unsure, I need more information.
Yeah, unsure.
Yeah, I definitely get that feedback from people too, and so they've taken the survey that they said, well, how much and what? I'd have to know that first. So
Yeah.
Just anecdotally.
Exactly. So like you could see if you put something forward that people really wanted and it didn't cost a lot of money, you might get over that opposition line and you could move forward with something. On the other hand, if you put forward something that most people didn't really care that much about and it cost a lot of money, you probably would not be able to move forward with it if you had a town vote. So that's how we're interpreting these results. You have quite a mix of opinion about whether to invest in improvements. So I'm going to give you the high-level summary, and then I'm going to go facility by facility and tell you what we heard. So the first is residents really do value and see the importance of the town's assets, but they are concerned about the cost of the upgrades. That's a very reasonable place for most of the people in the public to be. We heard over and over that this place does not work as a meeting space, and we'll go into some of the reasons why that was shared. We also heard specifically from town staff and from some users of the town office that it's cramped and there's not enough space for town staff to work efficiently with each other. We heard that the Eureka Center is really valued for its historic role that it's played in the community. It's a beautiful building, has a lot of potential to be better for the town, but it also has a lot of challenges and it may be expensive to fix, as is the town office. And then when we kind of opened up, what else would you like to see here that would bring people together in Durham where they could feel like they're part of a larger community? There were many ideas about how to make this space more usable for your residents, and we'll highlight some of those. All right, so here we are in the fire station. We actually were sharing exact quotes from some things that we pulled out because these were stakeholder meetings. We heard from some people very strongly these meetings should not be happening in the fire station. There were a couple big concerns. One is the select board has its executive sessions here, so they can be overheard by the people that are here. It's very hard to stop that from happening. There's also a security risk because there's no way to really lock people out of where all of the equipment is, and you also have pharmaceuticals that are kept here. The parking is not adequate for big meetings where you have a lot of people coming in. And then also after the meetings, the breakdown and cleaning really falls on the firefighters, so there's an additional burden there. So these were some of the reasons why people thought it didn't work all that well. You guys are in here all the time, so you can tell me later when we start workshopping about how big a issue you think it is. When we heard about the Eureka Center, we got a lot of people who were like, we got married there, we had dances, we used to be on the second floor, we did a tour. The second floor is not usable, as you probably know right now. It is pretty cold in the winter. I did do one of my workshops in a winter coat there. There's no AV or internet. You've got the pillars that make it hard to see if you've got somebody up front. So there's some real limitations to the space if you're trying to use it like this as a meeting space. Some of it can be probably addressed. Some people thought that if you renovated the second floor, you could actually get a lot more use out of that building, and what that use would be determined. The parking area is allowing unlimited access. We've heard from the DOT, they really don't like that, right? There's no actual curb cut. It's just like a big dirt place that you go into. So some people wanted to try to streamline that access, make it a little bit more defined, maybe even pave the parking. And the parking area isn't lit. So people were imagining they dropped their keys and would be stuck. Well, we heard about the town office. There's no place for a staff person to like put a big document down flat because there's just not enough space. A couple of the offices, and I'll show you a floor plan, have several different people working in them. So it's difficult if they're on the phone. It's not very efficient. Sometimes people have to go into the server room or the storage space, and it has been used for voting, and that has some security issues also. And there's also some concerns about, active shooter or other types of things. There's not another egress. There's only one entrance. And then what we heard about the fields and open space, people were concerned that if kids weren't enrolled in formal sports, they didn't really have much to do in this area. Folks that have younger kids but older kids playing in sports, they really love the idea of a playground or some area that was a little contained where younger kids could be while the games are going on. The parking area is kind of a mess. I noticed tonight people are on the dirt and they're just kind of coming in on, it's not a defined access really over on the other side. Dog walkers use the space a lot. You can't really get easily between the different town facilities. And one person said, well, is there a way that we could better share this space with the RSU? And that's something we had an RSU person, Michelle, at one of our meetings to kind of start exploring that, but there would need to be a much more detailed discussion to think about whether you could share some of the buildings or you could share the fields. There was, I said at the beginning, a diversity of viewpoints. I love these two in particular because the first one says, I use the town office for these things. I think the building is very nice. It serves well. No new building, great as is. The next one is like, I use Eureka Center, but it's not practical for town needs. Please replace it with a new town hall. So you get like complete opposite perspectives that we got when we were giving people these little, what do we call them? The word, Mad Libs. Yeah, we give people Mad Libs. I'm going to stop here and before I go into the potential improvements and the sketches that everybody started doing, and just see if there are any questions just on the basic public input we've gotten so far from the survey and the stakeholders.
How many sessions did you have with the committee?
The committee met 3 or 4 times, I believe. Is that right, Phyllis? You helped design the survey, helped analyze the survey results, helped design the 2 workshops.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Any other questions? All right, I'm going to move on to the drawing portion of our program, which was fun. So the first issue that really rose to the top was there isn't really great meeting space for large public meetings. And I can't remember, where do you do your town meeting?
School.
You do it at the school, yeah. So, you've got Eureka and you've got this room. Those are the 2 places where these meetings can occur. So when people were asked to think this through, and this is the question that you're going to be asking, if this is unacceptable, which is a question for you, then you need a different space. And the space would need climate control, internet and AV. You'd want to be able to allow for privacy and private conversations like executive sessions. It has to be accessible for people that have disabilities. And there are different options here for where that could be. And there could be some options we didn't think of places where you could meet. So that's your first if, then, and then make a decision. This is the rough floor plan. This is not to scale, but George helped us figure out exactly where everything was. But you can see here that you've got the town manager in one office, and then you've got the server room and kitchen, etc. The kitchen is not big enough for anyone more than one person to have a break in. So people can't eat together. Then you've got the vault storage. Then you've got 2 people in each of those offices on the right. You've got your front desk area that also has the front counters, the service counters. So you've got 2 people there. So that's what you've got right now. You've got 7 employees, 5 of them full-time, sharing this space. Back in 2006, people were talking about expanding because there was a problem, and these are some rough sketches that came out of that. And I'm putting this up here just to illustrate that this has been a discussion that's been going on in town for a long time. So if staff don't have enough space, and that's the question for you, if it's not adequate, then a different space or an expanded space would be necessary. And again, there are a couple things you need to have here. You need to be able to have private conversations, whether they're human resources or somebody's working with a resident on a real estate transaction or something like that that requires privacy. You want it to have climate control. You want it to be handicap accessible. So a couple different options here. One is you could have town hall be renovated to reallocate the existing space, or you could add on. You could rework Eureka. You could renovate it. You could even move it back from the intersection, put it on a new foundation because there's some issues with the foundation, or some other solution that we haven't thought of. I'm going to walk you through a couple of these concepts, which we just thought were really well drawn. You can tell we've got some excellent artists in Durham. Here's one where I'm going to walk up here just to point out a few things that I thought were interesting. This concept, which was by Julia, who was on the advisory committee, I had the idea of having some kind of a stone up here that said like Town of Durham or something that was like a slogan about Durham. And then the parking lots would be connected to serve, and you could have in and out access to serve Eureka, the ball fields, and the town hall. She envisioned that the Eureka Center became the town hall and that these other buildings became, is it mixed use and stuff? Coffee shop, yeah. She had the idea of a coffee shop. You put a basketball court in near the baseball fields. You'd have a couple picnic pavilions here. You'd have a playground. So this is just one person's idea. Another idea, this is from Neil Berry. He's on the budget committee and also part of the advisory committee. His idea here was that you would provide kind of paved parking here for the ball fields, and you would move Eureka Center back. So to be away from the intersection onto a new foundation. And Christian, remind me of this?
I think there's some soccer fields, there's playgrounds.
Soccer field, playground, yep. And then this one over here, this is by Patrick Boyle, and he was also on the advisory committee. He's a beautiful drawer here.
He's an engineer.
He's an engineer, so you can tell, and I think Julia is an architect, so we benefited from them. So up here, there's a modular. There's a modular back here that's we toured that. It's got a lot of animal stuff in it and old files. It's not usable at the moment. So his idea was, how do we restore that or use it for another purpose? Put in a crosswalk here that would be lit, and then I think he wanted to also move Eureka back. Is that right, Christian? Am I getting it right? I can't really read it very well. Yep, expand the town hall. His idea of shared parking was kind of similar to Julia's. Hers created this arc, but here there's one parking lot that would serve these 3 different facilities here. Anything I missed on that, Christian?
Opportunity for signage along Route 136.
Yep.
Yeah, so a little bit of wayfinding or sort of identity similar to the concept on the left.
So again, these are just sketches, ideas of 3 individual people, but I wanted to put them up because it gets towards the idea of a vision, and I thought it might spark your imaginations too about not only what's possible, but also like what's most important, right? What are the things that are going to be most important to you? So here we took all the different pictures and concepts that came together, and I think George did this good tabulation, thank you, George, of how many people said what, right? So expanding the town office was the top thing that came out of our community drawing workshop. And then having more shared parking rather than the parking being kind of atomized throughout this area was another important idea that came out, top idea. Folks were excited about moving or reorienting the Eureka Center, which would be accompanied by a full renovation, and that you would have a driveway that would be like much more defined access off of the road, off of Route 9. You would square off the intersection. and that you would add a crosswalk. Now, if you decided that the fire station was no longer needed, this is where we have to get into if, then, what, right? You probably wouldn't need this to be renovated for, say, AV, and you need it over at Eureka, right? So some of these things, like, they would accompany the particular project that you decided to do. You may not need a crosswalk if this is just going to be for fire. It might be a nice thing, but you may not need it. But if you are having meeting space, you could improve the pedestrian safety here. And it goes on here. You expand the parking. Again, you may not need to expand the parking here if you're moving your meetings over to Eureka or to the town hall. You could create some pathways. You could build a sidewalk. Some of these things are really expensive, and some of them are not expensive at all. So here's the fire station. And this is another way of looking at the information. I'm just getting your minds all oriented towards the questions I'm going to ask you pretty shortly. But first of all, you would say, people said, I should say, no meetings here, okay? But if you were going to have meetings, you probably need a crosswalk, and you would need to improve the AV, and you need more parking. And then, is there a way to reuse the storage space? That really wasn't, we didn't dive into that too much. We do know that there are files that are over in Town Hall, and there are files there. They all need to be digitized, takes time. But we didn't solve your file storage problem in this project. It's just wanted to pull it up for you so you knew that that was in the mix. All right, the town office, there are kind of two options here. One is to renovate it and kind of reallocate the space if you can to be able to better fit your staff. Or you could expand it, which is a probably more straightforward way to go to just create more space there. You could expand it just for staff offices. You could also expand it to include a meeting space. You wouldn't want to do that and do Eureka, right? So these are probably mutually exclusive. For Eureka, you could renovate it. You can move it back and onto a new foundation. You would corral the car office, you'd pave the lot, and you'd improve the lighting. So that's if you decided that the Eureka Center was really your best idea for how you were going to serve the community. Some people said you could move the town offices into Eureka. We didn't dive deep into that because we really need to get general direction from you first before going to the next step. For open space, these are some of the really low-cost things you could do if you wanted. You could add some paths. The parking could be gravel or better defined, or you could pave it. That would be the more expensive option. You could fundraise for a playground or put in a simple playground. Those playgrounds can be surprisingly expensive, but you can do them at all different levels. You could create more of a defined gathering space for people, maybe around some picnic tables. Picnic tables are really cheap. You can even have a community garden was one of the ideas that came out. So these things did not rank as high in importance as your town hall issues and your meeting space issues. But there may be some low-cost things that you can do out of this. All right, so this is today. Just to orient you, now we're going to go to some of what these things would look like on this schedule, on this schematic. So if you were to improve the fire station, you could put that crosswalk in, you could put in some paved parking across from Eureka, and you could add some picnic tables. And we just pulled little pieces of sketches that people gave us during the charrette here to show you what people were thinking. You could expand the town office and add some walking paths and put a little playground in next to the ball fields. If you moved Eureka back, you could create some space there for the defined parking. You could also add a new building. You can see that gazebo style thing. That could be where you have some businesses or housing, or that was some people's ideas. And you would have more defined access for parking. So those are all your ideas, and now I wanted to talk through what some of the next steps are and then see if you are all able to get to some alignment on what you think are priorities. So one potential next step is to work with DOT to put that paint in. Another one is for you to decide whether you want to improve space for meetings and or for staff. And if you decide yes, you'd want to think through which options are worth exploring and start to obtain some cost estimates. And then if you wanted to go even further and make this more of a town center where people can really connect with each other, you'd want to create a plan for this area. So those would be the rough next steps, and you could phase them over time in whatever order you want. So now we're going to workshop, and we're going to see where you guys are on this. I can take any questions first, but then I'd like to, and Christian's going to take down notes here about where you guys are on this, because you really have to set the direction of where this project will go from here.
Does anyone have any questions before we get into the workshop stage?
Actually, I do.
Yeah.
Did you, so with the people you spoke with, did you have others coming to your meetings with pricing and pricing out certain aspects of it?
We did not. Yeah, the pricing piece, it's a piece of work to get cost estimates for buildings and things like that. So we really wanted to check in with you before we went any further in thinking through that. Because as you can see, there are a lot of different options out here,
Right.
Rebecca.
I didn't see any connection or discussion about anything with the school grounds or the playground. Is there a playground at the school?
There is.
Yeah. You know, and
Yeah.
duplicating the playground here versus the school, or is any of that an option, or is it too far out of the way? Did
Yeah.
the team discuss that at all?
We didn't discuss it in depth. I mean, I think everybody recognized that, like, the parcel below this, right? So if you look at Julia's little sketch here, the parcel below is your school area, and you could put paths in that connect. You need to have a discussion between the town and the RSU
Yeah.
about what they would be willing to do and what you would be willing to do to share space. I know that we had some question, like, could the meeting space that Durham uses actually be in the school? So you didn't have to rebuild Eureka or things like that. And that's something that we didn't facilitate that discussion as part of this project. You could do that. There were some immediate barriers that some people mentioned, and I don't have an understanding of whether they're overcomable or not. Like, you know, school staff have to be there during the meeting and lock up afterwards or things like that. Those would need to be negotiated with the school if you wanted to go in that direction. But that is another option for you to think through.
You said Michelle was on the planning with you guys.
She participated in our stakeholder meeting,
Yes.
right? And also in the charrette, yeah, in the public meeting, yeah. And she's, you know, she's very helpful about thinking that through.
So I met with her, and currently, right now, if we was to use the school, you'd have to fill out a piece of paper every time you wanted to have a meeting, and you'd have to pay for it,
Interesting.
Yeah.
because they have staff.
But was your question more about like access to the playground?
Oh, you mean Deb's?
Oh, sorry.
Deb's, yeah.
Deb, was your
Yeah,
question
yeah,
more about
just
access
a,
to
just
the
Yeah.
a
playground?
connection
Yeah.
of the whole concept with the school and, you know.
You know, I mean, this is my opinion, but I think that this area, you can do some kind of low-cost improvements to create the pedestrian connectivity. When you start paving for cars and stuff, it costs more, but creating some, you know, basic paths,
Yeah.
you could connect into the RSU property. You'd still have to negotiate it with them, but you could do that.
So did Michelle, sorry, Jerry, did I cut you off?
No, I was gonna make one point. I don't believe the DOT will put in a crosswalk on a road that's 35 miles an hour or more. So it'd have to be under that, right, Calvin?
They'll do 35. I think it is 35 right here.
Is it? I'm not
35
sure.
here.
35.
Yeah.
Is it? Okay.
No one follows the sign. It says
Yeah.
35.
I think that's why if you did put something in here, we'd have to check it out with DOT. If you did go with something like that, you're going to need something flashing, right? Because the cars are very fast right there. For the pedestrians to actually be safe on that crosswalk.
So with the possibility of pathways leading between the design and the school area, Michelle had so that's something that we just have to discuss with them directly.
I think it'd be a
There's no-
town RSU negotiation.
Mhm.
And then my second follow-up question to that, sort of a piggyback, is with the use of, because I know a lot of kids who use that playground and the basketball and everything else, is that some sort of liability for us, or is that a question for RSU 5 because everybody uses it? So are they not allowed to use it?
I I don't have any idea about that. That probably has to do with insurances and things like that. So I would say that if you wanted to pursue that, you'd probably want to set up a meeting with the RSU.
Yeah.
I think you would be covered under tort claims because you wouldn't, I mean, if you provided a basketball court, it's there for a reason, so you
Yeah.
wouldn't really be negligent if someone turned an ankle or something, because it was, you know, if someone
there.
tried to,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I
So
think,
I'm gonna walk you through these big questions. So because there's a lot of detail that we could discuss and maybe not have all the answers tonight. So my objective for you tonight is to see where you are in terms of priorities on these big questions. And then from there, we can determine what the next steps are, whether it's cost estimates, a conversation with the RSU, et cetera. So the first question is, do you want to change the intersection using the paint scheme that DOT has drawn?
does anyone want to start with that?
I don't know if it's necessary. That's I mean, just from what the majority of people have been saying, because if we are not using this space, is it necessary? Is that
You mean,
the paint space meaning like the crosswalk and?
Oh,
so
I
this
think-
is,
that what
No,
sorry.
I
just-
think
just
the
the intersection.
the
Oh,
intersection
the
with
intersection,
9 and
moving that.
136.
Sorry,
Oh,
let me go
nobody's gonna follow
backwards.
that.
I mean,
That's
my
always-
question about that, like, I understand, I like the idea of, because what happens now if you're trying to take a right and someone pulls up behind you, they block off your
Yeah.
entire viewpoint.
Yeah, oh, sorry, there we
and-
are.
And so
Sorry, I
my
was
question when I see that is, paint's great, but the people who, myself included, who are using this intersection might not recognize that paint's down there or see it, even if it's got the speckles or whatever in it. I have seen other towns where they have like, and it's a pain in the butt during the plow season,
Yeah.
but they have little
Islands and stuff.
islands or something like
bollards.
that. To me, that seems like something that's actually gonna do it, but like, my truck can sit on that paint, no problem, trying to turn left, and so,
Yeah.
I want to see something done there, cause even, you know, my thought process is even if it isn't rising to that highest level, like, I do hear feedback on it, and like, I hate to do nothing, and if, you know, my point, one fatality is too many, you know?
Yep.
Yeah,
I mean,
but-
this is kind of like a little improvement over an intersection that's somewhat problematic, but it's not problematic enough that DOT will pay for the installation of any kind of hardscape changes
Yeah.
there.
Right.
So that's really the question before you. Do you want to, and I think we could talk to them about whether they're willing to do any more, but we've already had the preliminary conversations and this is what they're offering.
I don't mean building a curb. I mean like like in some other communities you have the paint and then at the little corners you just have the post that's the plastic post that stand up with the reflector at the top.
Like the orange cones?
Yeah, not it's kind of like not,
It's like a straight
straight
pipe
white
Oh, okay.
that's
pipe.
flexible. Yep.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not sure whether they'd be willing to do it.
I think the idea of this is to try to get folks to approach the intersection in a T form, so you're not straining your neck.
So
and
two people
better
aren't- yeah.
sight distance, and some people will follow it, some won't. you
Yeah,
know,
it's,
mean,
I think the idea is to prevent two people from both being pointing
Yeah.
at the intersection, one
Right.
trying to go left, one trying to go
Yeah.
right.
So the person who's turning left would need to wait
Yeah,
until the person turning right is done, right?
Mhm.
And that would improve the visibility of somebody coming down. So that's the point of the paint. Whether people will follow it, we all know that we've got crazy drivers out there,
Mhm.
but this would be, the proposed improvement. So the question is, do you want Jerry to pursue a paint option with DOT?
I'd like to hear the details on it, you know, if it's a nominal fee and one person pays attention to it, that seems, but
Okay.
if it's a expensive prospect for people that park on top of it, I wouldn't mind hearing the cost estimate,
All right, Rebecca, Josh, Deb, do you have any thoughts?
I mean, it doesn't hurt.
yeah.
I mean,
Doesn't seem like there's strong feelings here about this.
It's just not very, it's, like to your point,
Mhm.
with the snow, nobody's gonna see it. It's gonna, how quickly will that wear out with salt on the road? I mean, it's
just like anything.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it doesn't fundamentally change the intersection.
Yeah.
So
If it's okay, is it okay to ask Calvin if he has any,
Of course.
as our road commissioner, what your thoughts are, Calvin?
I think that would work. I don't know. I mean, we keep the intersection pretty well bare and snow and a snowstorm. I can tell you every day when I go home, I pull up to where that says stop and I try to square off so I can see both ways, and someone goes right around the inside me where that slash mark is. So now I'm going left, but now they're going left as well. Now the
Yeah.
two of us going left, and
I've had the same problem.
Yeah.
it's, I really think, and I talked to DOT, and I'm not going to say, but they may very well pay for this, so.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was getting at too. If it's a couple hours labor and $200 worth of paint, investment is low, even if return is low there.
All right, so what I'm hearing, and you can tell me if I'm like overstepping here, but this is how I facilitate to try to get us to decisions, is that Jerry will reach out to DOT and ask 2 questions. One, which is, are you willing to do any more hardscaping? And by that, it can be bollards, it could be something else that would do a better job corralling drivers than paint. And 2, will DOT pay for it?
Right.
Does that seem like a good way to proceed on that?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back to, and now we're gonna go to the more complicated questions, right? So the next question for you, oop, too far. Does the community need a different meeting space?
Yes,
Yes, absolutely.
What did you say?
Yes.
yes.
Rebecca? Yes. Okay. Wow. I thought this was the more complicated one. All right. So let's go back to the decision
Yes.
tree on this one. If the community needs a, where is it, Christian?
You're still, yeah, a little bit.
Keep
a little
going.
bit back, yeah.
All right. Here's your decision tree. So if the fire station is unacceptable, so you're saying you need a new
I think
new
that's
space.
a uniform
Yeah,
agreement
it seems
here.
like 4 people right now said yes. So a different space is needed. So let's go to that small line there about what you would need in the space. Is this the right list?
So I think in looking at that list, that's everything we need. We need to be able to have the recording that we have here. We need to be able to present things on a screen, present things on a wall. We need to have good internet, good line of sight for people to participate, and good access for people.
Okay.
And accessible.
Yeah, it has to be handicapped,
yeah.
and that's required.
Mhm.
Any other thoughts from the 3 of you? If that's the right list?
We don't have the word security up there anywhere, and,
Mhm.
That's good.
you know,
Yeah, so security,
Depending on where
and
it is, too,
can you
that
just say a
depends
little
a
bit more
lot,
about
yeah.
security? From your perspective, when you think of a secure place, what would you want to make sure there was? Like a locked front door, a second egress, what is, when you think about it?
yeah, I think both of those things.
Yeah, for me,
Yeah.
part of that is determined a little bit on the location. But like if it's a multi-use facility where there's town office and that being able to have there be like an accessibility point where that shared space can be utilized without access to the rest of the building. So like when we use the school, you can rent out the cafeteria for a public event. You only have access to the cafeteria and the
Yeah.
restrooms. You can't roam the rest of the building. And if we were to have something like this at a town office, there'd have to be that like public use space
Yep.
separated from town office space. That's if it were. So the security could look a little different in my opinion. But
Okay.
also set modes of egress to get in and out, especially for the unfortunate reality we live in with mass casualty events. And
Yep.
then something that prevents people from intentionally or unintentionally driving into it, because Jerry had someone almost drive into the town
Into
building
your office, right?
by accident.
Yeah,
Okay, I think we've got that. Anything else on security from any of you?
cameras probably.
What, cameras?
Mhm.
Okay. Great. All right, so before we go to where that space, what are the
Mhm.
best options for exploring that space, I want to ask you the next question, which is, do your staff need more office space?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
So
So,
to
so-
me, this drives town office as the town office needs space for the staff, and we need
So
space
I'm gonna
for
get there,
community,
I
yeah.
promise.
Sorry.
All right, so we've got a couple different options here that I want to talk through. So you've got the town hall, right? You could do a couple things with the town hall. You could expand it. You could renovate it. You could also expand it you could expand it to include offices, and you could expand it to also include community space, right? I think those are the two options there. For Eureka, you could renovate it. The foundation's not in great shape. There's sand and water that's kind of flowing under it. So Calvin had advised us that it would be good to probably move it onto, you could either fix the foundation, keep it where it is, or you could move it back to kind of where the, not where the parking area is, kind of into the field. And you could add things in like climate control and AV. You've got your line of sight issue because those pillars, and I did ask, are structural. So you can't really get rid of those pillars unless you put steel beams in. I'm looking at Calvin just to make sure I'm getting this right. And steel beams are expensive, okay? So you'd still have your line of sight issue there for an open meeting room. There is an idea also of renovating the top floor, and you could put some offices in there. You would need to install an elevator. So that's all I'm gonna say about Eureka, because that's about the depth of my knowledge on what needs to happen there, and we can dive in more if you decide that you wanna really look at Eureka. I think those are your two kind of most natural options. I'm gonna take number 3 off, because we just decided the fire station's not a good place. The only other option would be to work with the RSU, maybe to go into Public Works. We didn't explore that a lot in this meeting, in this process, because fairly early on, we were told there'd be the same kind of conflicts that you have at the fire station with trucks going in and out, not having enough parking. It's far away from the existing town hall. So it didn't seem like it was a great idea, but I put it up there because it's something one of our members talked about, Donna Church, and also it wasn't really investigated. You could also just build a brand new building, which is always another option. So I'm gonna stop there and say if you wanted to do town space, sorry, you can split it too. You could renovate Eureka for your meeting space, and you could add on to town hall for more staff space. So you've got the option of going full blown on the town hall, going to Eureka full blown, or having them separate for different purposes. And you've got, of course, other options we may not have thought of.
I'm in favor of leaving Eureka as a fellowship space versus taking it over with town business. It all depends on the cost and where we end up
Yep.
with the plans and all
Yep.
that too. And I think an addition to the town hall, a big addition that includes meeting space and office expansion, is where my head's at.
Okay.
Again, not knowing cost and evaluating that,
Yep.
but I would lean more towards that. I think it's important, if we're going to eventually end up investing in this area, to make it a community, drive community presence, I guess. I think a place of fellowship is important outside of using the town hall for, team dances or something like that. I think the fellowship piece is
I'm
important.
gonna go to Josh next.
I agree. I mean, granted, if we weren't here, the fire department could be having their thing here instead of over at the
Right.
community center. But they have stuff going on.
There've been
so
many
it's-
conflicts, actually, like
Right.
when both rooms are booked.
Right,
Yeah.
and so I don't think that makes sense. I also think, renovating the Eureka Center is going to be super expensive. But I think that the addition to the town hall can address everything. It's gonna be expensive either way, but, I think that's the best way to do it.
Okay, thanks, Josh. How about you, Rebecca?
I totally agree. I think that renovating an older building is going to be a lot more expensive. I think, especially if we have to move it, and the upstairs and elevator, it just doesn't make sense. I think the addition for the office is much better. Financially
And a community
location.
space for the
And a
town hall?
community space too.
Okay.
I think that's a
For
wonderful
meetings, yeah, like where you would have,
Mhm.
yeah, okay, and then Joe, where are you at?
Yeah, I'm following with everybody else here. I think that put it a really good way about having that. When I hear the stories of the Eureka Center, it's not that I hear people say, "Oh, I had a really good time filing my taxes there." It's I got married there, I got had a dance there, I met somebody there, and I think that that's what that space is kind of good for. When we already, in my mind, we need to address office space, and so just like economy of scale, it's gonna be cheaper to increase your
Yeah.
expansion if you're having to do that anyways than it is to work over there. And to Josh, your point, and to Rebecca's point, I think the expense of Eureka Center would get really prohibitive really quickly for ADA compliance, and moving a building isn't cheap. And then, you know, from what I've learned from Calvin's, like, sand and water is coming through the walls of the foundation into the bottom of the foundation.
Yeah. So there will
Um,
have to be some
we have to
repairs that are done.
And so that's where I think that some repairs at the
Eventually,
Eureka
yep.
Center would be nice for a community space, but it doesn't need to be the AV system and the security camera, the cameras we have here, like, you know, some sort of heat and,
I can't
climate
remember who
control.
is financially responsible for Eureka right now. Who owns
the
it?
town.
The town. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that
So you're
seems
still,
like,
so there still is going to have to be some. Am
Yes, I
right
still
on that,
think we
Calvin?
need to
You still have to do
contribute.
something on the foundation.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
but I think that trying to do something over there to create a space that community members can use, like the scouts are using, or
Yeah.
people are having a birthday
Book
party
sale,
or something,
yeah.
is
Yeah.
good. And then town
fellowship
business, yeah,
idea.
town business happens someplace separate, you
Yeah.
know,
Okay. All right.
that's
Well,
not here.
this is actually, I mean, you guys are in remarkable alignment. I mean, the question is going to be that tension that you saw in the results saying that people want improvements, but they also don't want to pay a lot of money for them, right? So I think as a next step, I'm going to propose to you that there be a high level look at what the needs are for staff space and how big a meeting room would need to be, and then a cost estimate that would be associated with that. And that would give you an understanding of whether you feel like the town can afford it and would want to put that out to the residents.
I think that looking at the 2006 drawing that we already have that was done, that expanded the space, I've looked at it once before, and it has like a meeting space for town meetings, but it also creates better office space, and it seems like it's already well thought out. Like, I think that that's a good
It's a
place
starting
to
point.
start from.
Yeah.
That doesn't get into the whole awesome ideas about other community spaces, but just in terms of that, that's where I think it's a
Do you
good
have
space.
Deb, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just, keep thinking how fortunate we are about how the town office sits right now, and the fact that it's very doable to add a huge, or whatever size, an addition. You're
It's all room
not
to
having
work
to,
with.
Because you got the land
yeah,
and
the
there's land
land's right
around it
there,
that's
it's
available.
flat,
Yeah.
we're really fortunate with that. I mean,
Yeah.
this doesn't have to.
Do you have any
break the bank.
guidance, right, on, how do I put this? How ambitious you want to be with this?
So, for me, I would say it would be nice to make it, see people to have an individual office. As all full-time staff to have an individual office. And then enough space for people to be able to have a break room where they can actually sit down and eat food like you would see at most standard offices. And then kind of like a council chambers that can be used as a meeting
Meeting
space.
space,
Now, I know
okay.
in some places there's a separate council chamber from meeting space. I think that we could put those two together
Yeah.
as one.
Yeah. And you can design a space like that so that it's more flexible
Yeah,
and,
And-
yeah.
a space that has at least the space we have here for people to come and participate.
So
because-
something around this large or bigger or smaller?
To me, a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
even tonight, we don't get this sort of turnout often, but when we do,
Yeah.
and for hearings with the planning board and stuff like that, we get that kind of turnout. And
Yeah.
it's harder to build a sense of community when you've worked all day and now you're standing in the back of a room waiting for your time to speak, and it's
Yeah.
like, I'm standing out back here. I want people to be comfortable in it and be inviting personally.
So what I'm hearing from Joe is full-time staff should be able to have their individual office. There should be a break room where more than one person can sit together, and that you need a flexible space that would host your select board meetings, but also could be used for other town business.
Yeah.
What else? Or any thoughts on that? Go
I
ahead.
don't think it should be, I don't know what the right term is, architecturally challenging, meaning it doesn't have to be real costly. I mean,
Basic, so
yeah,
more
kind of
like a more basic
yes, a basic
architecture.
building
Yep.
that, meets the needs of the community
We don't need any
without an
marble
extra,
columns.
right.
No frills,
Yeah.
no columns,
Yeah.
no Greek
No
columns.
marble, no
Got
granite.
it.
Can you put the 2006 plan
Yeah,
up?
that's a good
I'm gonna give Christian, or maybe.
I think
Okay, thank you,
you're
George.
talking utilitarian space, you know?
No, you're,
And I'm really in favor of
thank you, George.
really making the town offices where our employees work
Mm-hmm.
appealing,
say-
nice,
Yeah, I was gonna wait
know,
for the
just like-
adjectives.
comfortable.
Comfortable. Do you wanna,
You want to enjoy coming to work.
Yeah. I mean,
Right
what-
now
Well,
it's challenging.
and especially because we're largely in-person work most of the
Right,
time too,
right.
so we want space, but
Now,
George had.
Yeah, another important point is like today, I came out of the office and there were like 8 people in line to get to the counter. And it's like, there's no place for them to sit,
Yeah.
they're all crowded.
Mhm.
So it's not just the employees, it's also the
That's-
The
customers.
yeah, the
That's
so a
my
little bit,
concern
a little bit of
too.
a waiting
A
area?
large waiting area where they can have a seat, they're waiting to see the code officer, if they're waiting to get something done.
A
So
little,
that's
a little
that's
bit of
another-
privacy too, because maybe you don't want the 7 people in line hearing the conversation
Yeah.
you're having. If you're paying a late tax bill or something like you're filing something sensitive for paperwork, you know.
So maybe just a little bit more space in that lobby area
Yeah.
for the front
Yeah.
desk.
A little privacy, like a little
Yeah.
lake.
Okay.
Is somebody able to describe what's, like how,
This is the original
Oh, is that
space right here,
Yep.
right?
Is that
So,
it? Okay.
see on this left one here, Rebecca, see the little hatch at the top there?
yes,
That is the added
Okay.
area,
thank you.
and you can see it over here. It's,
Mhm.
it's a little bit longer on this one than it is on that. But that was the first idea. I mean, I'm not an architect, so I don't really know how best to do this. I think you'd want to maybe share this with somebody who's doing it, but not depend on this as the plan, because this was done 20 years ago?
2006.
2006,
And here we are in 26, so I think
yeah.
any kind of design that you want to do, you want to kind of project some growth even.
Right.
So we want to design this for like
What,
2050.
one thing
Right.
that
That's
I
true.
think is important to me about that security thing is you can even see here, this is the council chamber and meeting space and bathroom. It's delineated separately from the workspace, so, you know, the staff leaves and they lock the door here. If someone's coming in and they gotta go out, take a phone call or use the restroom or something like that, they're not
Yeah.
weaving through
Okay.
you know,
So I've heard
people's
2 other
workplace.
things. One is to make sure that there's a security barrier between where the public space is and where the workspace is. And another one is to think about a waiting area for people who are using the front desk services. And another one is to make sure that we've got the long-term in mind, that we're not just designing for today. So I think that's why I wanted to get some principles from you, so that when we go and start talking to folks, that we can have a little bit of an understanding of what we're asking for and not just depend on this drawing.
Yeah, I think also just with what Jerry was saying, we need a building that's very efficient, because definitely with prices going up,
Energy efficient,
yes.
Yep. okay. Yeah, and there's some ways that, you can do that. Again, beyond what we were able to do in this project, but we could think a little bit about how the heating works, the cooling, things like that. Okay, I only have one last question for you. So George, can you flip to the very end where we've got the workshop questions? And that is about this larger idea about, one before that. One more, yep, there. So you've answered the 3 top questions, which is, yes, if it's low cost and DOT will pay for it. Second one is yes, and we want it to be the same as where we do the staff space, so yes to the third. So the last question is, are there any other priorities that you heard from the public that you want to put on the table to explore? And one thing I'll say is that you don't have to do everything at once, right?
Sure.
Right, so this would be more directional. If you decided that you do want to make this more of a town center that has, places where people collide and have community spaces and things like that, you probably want to do kind of a plan. Now that we know that Eureka stays where it is, the town office is going to be expanded, then you kind of draw a plan around that about anything else that you want to put in as amenities. And I would say that would probably be a next step if you wanted to go in that direction. But before we go there, what are the things that kind of stood out to you, if anything, that you think are worth pursuing?
I'll let someone else go first, because I have a lot
So-
of thoughts on it.
One of the things that I heard was like a community center with a gym. This was from basketball parents who were complaining that there's not enough gym time for the younger kids.
Is there a basketball court over at the RSU?
Yes.
But there's just not enough.
It's not very
Yeah.
great.
It's
It
not
needs
great.
a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The outdoor, there's
The
one
outdoor,
outdoor.
and
Well,
then the
we can use the
gym.
inside, but it's
Yeah.
very limited.
The gym has, you have to, like, to your point, you have to get the permission, and RSU communities, we've arranged for programs for like futsal and some basketball, but it's not.
We did the basketball program this fall and winter. It was all Durham kids, but we had to go to Pownell
Yeah.
Yeah.
and use their gym.
That's a big thing I've heard a lot of, is people, to just jump on this point with you, is that having a space to do things extracurricularly, especially with people with kids, that's not tied to the RSU, because like people have said, like, my kid's on a team, we're all from Durham, and we play every game in Freeport.
Yep.
But there's kids on Freeport's team coming to the Durham, and a little bit, since it's a shared, the RSU is shared, having a little bit on Durham space for Durham activities is something I heard, which was surprising to me. I was
Yeah.
glad to get that feedback.
Okay, so we'll put community center in there. High price tag.
Yeah, and what I heard, which surprised me from some of the people that said it, was that the price tag would be worth it. So
Yeah. Okay.
Interesting.
I don't know how much I agree with that,
Yeah.
but that was a comment that I got.
All right. Well, why don't we put all the ideas on the table first, and then
Yeah.
we'll figure out how to prioritize them. Can I go to you next, Rebecca? Or wait, Josh, do you have anything else besides the basketball
Oh,
in the
I'm
community
sure.
center? Like some of these, I'm actually, and I'll just be transparent, fishing for some low-cost things that
So
might help improve people's quality of
I
life.
like the walking path idea and doing some of those sorts of things in the area.
Yep.
To me, would be a great idea. And then the parking, I use the parking over there looking for somebody at the field. And I didn't even realize there was that little dirt exit on the 136 over there.
It's informal.
Yes, yes. It was, it didn't seem very safe when it gets crowded.
Yeah. Yeah. So can I capture that as like improve the parking situation?
Parking, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Create a parking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
create official parking situation. Yeah. Rebecca, I'm gonna go to you next.
I'm actually very surprised nobody said anything about a fenced-in dog park
Oh,
area.
Yeah,
That
nobody did.
is, I mean, I feel like that's something that would bring people, I know that a lot of us just let our dogs out, but the only dog parks are in Brunswick, Auburn, and Bath,
Yep.
really. Those are the closest ones. And they're, if there's something simple, just a fence
Yeah.
for the dogs to run around, that would be good and low cost.
Yep.
Throw some kids in there too.
Yeah, honestly,
Maybe
you
a pig
just
scramble.
need the mats, let them
Yeah.
go. I would love to see what Josh was saying as a gym, but I don't think our town's gonna spring for that. That's high on the list. But, yeah, right. What I really thought, I didn't see either, were, like Nordic trails for cross-country skiing or just walkway paths that can weave in and out of the woods. This probably is not allowed, but a lot of the kids at DCS do play manhunt, where it's tag in the dark. So utilizing like creating paths within the tree-lined areas for skiing or walking, that's a really nice option that is very low cost.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca.
I kind of like the idea of this parking. I mean, it's not a low cost like you were asking
Yeah.
about, but the more I look at it, the more I kind of, you're
Yeah.
limiting the different areas,
Yeah.
but providing space for all of them at the same time.
Yeah, and you know, there was another sketch that was intriguing to me too, where you had one parking area, but you had 3 accesses to it, right? And so like the less pavement you have, the less expensive it would be. So to the extent that the different facilities have people using them at different times, you can get away with shared parking and fewer spaces. That would be its own kind of like thing that we'd have to look at. It'd be a little bit of an analysis of the uses and where you do it, but sharing parking and connecting it formally to the roads is probably safer. Yeah. Okay, Deb, you're up.
I like the idea of very small changes, just showing that there's some progress there. Like, I really like the idea of, I think you said that was a brick wall maybe with a sign.
Yeah, like
Town
a
of
stone
Durham.
thing, like
Yeah,
welcome to Durham, something
yeah,
like that, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And,
probably not that expensive.
not that expensive, and just a sign that there's more to come. You know,
Yeah.
if something like that was there.
It like demarcates the space as a
Yes,
community space,
Right,
yeah.
right. And I really love this design too, like Josh said, of this rounded, I don't know if you were headed there, but just the parking, you
Yeah.
know, doing something with the parking so it's safer. I really think this is unsafe where we are right now. We're lucky that nothing has happened. I don't think.
Well, you're
anything's
pointing to
happened
what?
there. Over
Over
at
at Eureka?
Yeah, over
Yeah.
at
The
Eureka.
entrance point being
The entrance,
100
yeah.
feet wide.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
And it's dark
yeah,
over there.
it is dark.
And I think, you know, a low cost, putting picnic tables or some pavilions up right off, just to draw people to the space.
Okay.
But I'm excited that, you know, we can make a long-term plan for all of this, but
I think that
I
would
think
probably
some
be your
near-term
next step.
things.
Yeah, it would be, your next step would be, for the larger parcel here, would be to have a plan
Right.
that also included phases and some cost estimates.
Like a master plan.
Like
Yeah.
a master plan for
And
the
a
area.
funding,
Yeah.
funding plan.
Funding mechanism.
Yeah, I mean, and I am
Well-
gonna share just, you know, there are not that many funding opportunities at the moment, right? They've been really drying up at the federal level. There's never been a lot of funding that's been available for community facilities. There may be some changes where TIF money might be able to be used for community facilities, but you don't have a TIF yet, a TIF district. So, you know, this would be self-funded by Durham, so that's
Right,
just something for you to keep in mind as you're thinking about these improvements, because your voters will have to
Yeah.
approve it.
Sure.
So what about, with other places and towns, you know, people can buy in to buy a bench to put a plaque
Yeah.
on, or
Yeah.
whatever it might be.
You could certainly do
Stuff like
that stuff.
right?
I mean, yeah, because I'm sure there are a lot of people in the town who would love that. Just to
Yep.
have that option, is that something that can also be priced?
Yeah,
out
I mean, you could do a fundraising campaign, right? We can come up with what the costs are for different things, and then if you decided, say, you want picnic tables to be sponsored,
Yeah.
right? Or if you decide you want a path to be sponsored, right? You could always do that and do some private fundraising, which I think would make a lot of sense for these community things. I don't think it makes sense for your town hall, right? That's not gonna be a fundraising, like, great thing. That's something that you're just gonna have to bond for and go to the voters for, in my opinion. Maybe there's some options I haven't thought of, but just giving you my best advice.
Well, I have a ton of ideas that I like about this. So one thing that I think about is that we don't really have the space in the community where people can come and like participate in activities. And I think generally the thought process has always been like, we're a rural town, you've already got your back 40, you can, you know, kick the can around the woods behind your house, you don't have to do it at a town space. But I think that as we've seen developments take place and subdivisions, people want a space where they can be like, you know, rather than letting my dog out the door and then putting on all things Durham, lost my dog, you know, we have a place that we can go and bring our dogs or something. And so I think of the idea of this downtown is really great. And with some of the things being bigger ticket versus smaller ticket, I think that the big thing that we can look at is this access place. And then you have the open space that you know could in future be something. So maybe you want a building with a basketball court in there. Well, in the short term, could it be the open, grassy, cheap, inexpensive fencing around a dog area? And then that could be the future site of something bigger. Like just cutting trails through the woods there. Something as simple as like putting, they're not super expensive, but, and it might sound goofy, but like putting a couple of the Frisbee golf posts up in the woods, and then, you know, we have a little place that people can come play. I just think like if you look over any given night when there's something going on at the baseball, the kids whose parents are attending, they might have other children, and they're just running around in the grassy parking area, you know, there's nothing really there for them to do. And so I see things like, you know, you put out a picnic table with the hopes of someday fundraising to put in a small concrete pad and cover it. But the picnic table is the placeholder for now, the future covered
Yeah.
area. That's something I see we could do. Like a community garden, it's like you run a rototiller through the ground, you put some topsoil down, you can have a community garden. So if your kid's playing baseball, you can come over and work on your garden plot. Those are things I like the idea of. When you said like a gymnasium, I was thinking like Venice Muscle Beach out there, equipment or something. I know that might just be me, but like there's some really cool exercise equipment that's made to be like playground style equipment. Like Lewiston has a
Like a pull-up
gym
bar and
facility
stuff.
where they have like everything. So like, yeah, you drop the kid off, you can exercise, or you come over. And I think that those sorts of things, just things to do, so you're not just like sitting over there. But whomever came up, and I think Calvin had pointed this idea out as well, the idea of having this access that you can kind of like pass through it rather than just like pull in, rut up some grass, and like
Yeah,
hope your car doesn't get hit by a home run. I like this idea, and then you can plug in those future sites for different things. So,
great.
and this is to me like vocalize. Like I understand everything I just vocalized costs a lot of money, but this is just like putting it out on the table.
Yeah. And you could do
This
this
is
over
the want section
10,
of the
20 years,
conversation.
right?
You know?
I mean, this is really thinking about the future for Durham, and you are going to have to be sensitive to the cost and figure out what you wanted to do first. So,
Calvin had his.
oh, sorry, Calvin.
If we put a master plan together that everybody's happy with, put up to the public, could we do impact fees, like the new construction that pay for that? Families that are moving here, I know a lot of towns do impact fees for schools, or would that not be considered an impact perhaps?
I don't know the answer to that, do you?
So I first of all should acknowledge that there's like a lot of interest in the legislature right now in terms of like possibly clarifying impact fees and what they can be used for. So the answer might be a little different in the near future. I would just generally acknowledge that I think there's a lot of need for impact to be very specifically quantified and appropriately allocated, and so there are certainly ways to do recreation impact fees or school or public infrastructure impact fees, but I think it would need to be a pretty dedicated plan, and you'd need a lawyer and a specialist to really make sure that was a. I can't say right off the bat that that's something that you could absolutely do. I think you'd really have to shoehorn that into a really specific vision.
I'm gonna mention another approach though to get at what I think your objective is, which is to get some money that could go into this, right? Which would be a TIF district, a tax increment financing district, and it would need to be coordinated with other priorities for the town. But Jerry and I were just chatting before about, is there economic development that could happen in the town that would take some burden off the property tax payer? And could you, if you structured it right, you gotta stop me here if I'm going beyond my.
You gotta get Paul here.
I know, we have an expert on our staff on how to put together TIFs, but you could structure it in a way where if the economic development were near to this, then you could have it help funnel some money into the infrastructure costs. So, that's something also to explore in the future when you get further down the line on where you're going.
And Christina, if I can just add in, I mean,
Please.
I think where this gets complicated, and it's always worth acknowledging, is that like there is almost never going to be a magic wand solution, and so even if there are impact fees, even if there is a TIF, the things that are going to fund a drastic level of investment through one of those mechanisms are going to be pretty dramatic changes and growths in the town.
Yeah.
And so
So
that's
really,
what-
yeah,
so you sort of need to be aware
yeah,
that's what you're interested in and hoping for.
And we don't want to give you anything pie in the sky, right? Like this is going to come back to your voters,
Yeah.
right? And it's what they're going to be willing to pay. So you're going to want to design what you do in, you know, in conjunction with what you think the town residents want, which is why we did so much public input. You can see people want things, but they are very nervous about the cost. So you just got to keep that in mind as you start to think about what goes
Yeah.
forward. So I want to get us, I know,
Well, I
do you
was
have
gonna-
more, Joe?
I was just gonna ask.
Yeah.
So could what we could get out of this is like, you know, ask, let's make a move towards getting some sort of high level design, like in my mind, if we say the road complex going through is a good idea, maybe we start with that and say, how could this be laid out to keep as much open space available for adding or moving things in the future? Like, we don't know if that's gonna be a basketball court, but there's space for up to something that's 50 by 100 here, up to something that's 100 by 100 here, rather than like, you know, designing because that road and that trail could be the first step, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I would recommend is that you focus on what seems to be the highest priority, which is the town building. And at the same time, start thinking about investing in developing a master plan for this region, for this area, that takes into account what we already know about the town building and starts mapping out how the parking and the trails would go and where different future facilities could go. And the plan would phase it, right? And it'll take a little while for you to come up with the plan for the building plan, the architectural plan and the cost estimates. But it doesn't mean you can't do kind of a lower cost investment in a master plan at the same time with making some assumptions about that. So I think that's the way that I would advise you to go. I mean, we are, as GPCOG, we're at the end of our grant for you. So you're going to need to probably put some skin in the game to go to the next step. I can work with Jerry to put together kind of a final memo about these are the things that we think you can do. Here are some next steps that you can take. There might be a little bit more that we can do on a few pieces, doing some connections and things like that. But then you'll probably want to take a select board action at some upcoming meeting about what you want to do first, second, third, and based on what it might cost for you to pursue those, you know, architectural plans and cost estimates and things like that. Jerry, does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to try to summarize. Does that seem okay? And then you can all nod or shake your heads, and Christian and I will go back and get you a 2-pager that we hope summarizes what you said. You're not going to take any action here tonight because it's a workshop. You don't have anything on the agenda. Am I right, Joe?
Yeah, we weren't gonna take
No action. So it'll also give an opportunity to others who can't be here to listen to this workshop and like weigh in when you actually make a decision, right? So my takeaways are that we're going to talk to DOT, see what kind of improvements they can make to the road, and then what kind of money they're willing to put in to fund it. We are going to say that the select board's guidance is that the highest priority is to expand the town hall to include a meeting space appropriate for the select board and other town business and offices for the staff, and we have some guidance around what that would look like that you already articulated and we'll write up. And that you would like to pursue a master plan for this area that takes into account some maybe long-term goals around a community center, but also some short-term improvements that prioritize fixing the parking and finding some shared areas where the community can come together. A dog park, community garden, playground, picnic area. Paths. Get
Sounds
it?
perfect.
Did I get it?
Yep.
Okay. I think my work is done here tonight.
Well, we really appreciate
Yes,
you
thank
convening
you.
such a good
Great.
community. When you said you get over 300 responses, I was like, that's really good for what we get for responses. I mean, that's almost twice as many people that attended the town meeting. You know, like
Yeah.
that's a big response. You know.
Yeah, I think you had 350, which, like, you're a population of almost 4,000, so it's
Mhm.
almost 10% of your people responded
Yeah.
to the survey,
Yeah.
which is really, do to the advisory committee,
Yeah.
because they really
Yeah, this
reached
was
out.
really awesome to get that
Yeah.
support from them.
Yeah, and if you get a chance to recognize them at your
Yeah,
town meeting or
absolutely.
something, give them all a round of applause. They did a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All
Very
right.
much. It was
Thank
very
you so much,
informative.
Christina. We'll be talking.
All right, we will.
Okay, super.
We'll be in touch.
And Phyllis, thank you and the rest of the advisory committee. That was very good.
Alrighty. Next on the agenda here is Calvin, road commissioner truck review on bids. So, come on up, Calvin.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks, George.
Thank you.
So I put the pickup out to bid and got bids back from the bidders on the attached. You guys have the sheet, the Excel sheet? In the pictures.
Yeah.
We were gonna replace it last year, and Jerry and I thought we could get another year out of it, so we've done that, but it's,
This is one of the, so this is one of these deals where we fund the reserves, and the town used to, when it was up for replacement on the schedule, at town meeting, they would vote for it just because it was up. Well, we could have got another year out of the truck when it was up, and that's exactly what we did. But as you can see in the pictures, it's pretty much run its life. It's 146,600 on it. It's really rusting out bad. Calvin's had some electrical problems with it. And if you look at the trade-in value, to get all that fixed would cost more than what they give him for a trade-in. So so I'm supporting his wanting to get a new truck. I think it's time. So he went out to bid, and we got those 3 bids. And you'll see where O'Connor is the preferred bid. It's not the exact low bid. There's only an $800 difference. One of the reasons we're going with O'Connor is the low bid truck is up in Bangor. So we prefer to get the one right out of Augusta. It's $800 more. So truck is a tool. I mean, the cab corners, you can see in some of the pictures, it's rusting out, so.
you look worse in color.
Yeah. So
Worse in color. So this is one of these ideas where we did get more life out of the truck versus,
yeah, my first question is, so why not the high bid here? Like, I know that you're saying that the middle bid doesn't have the dual battery. Is that something that you would prefer?
Well, they're telling me that they've increased the size of the alternator, and I can live with one battery now. And the first company was going to try to retrofit one after the fact. I wasn't crazy about that. Anytime we've had things like that done, it comes back to haunt you later. So I'd be happy to have the high bid one, but
Well, I mean, the reason I ask is, I think that we want to make sure you're getting the right piece of equipment for the job. The, trade-in's a little bit better, but it's still a little bit more expensive, but we're talking less than, $4,000. And if there's that value associated with that higher bid, this is your chance to let us know if you think it's there, or if we really think that middle bid's what you need and the best value, that's fine too. But I just wanted to make sure
well, one of
we
the
hear you out.
issues here is I had to let the winning bidder know a week ago that they were the winning bidder
Okay.
because these trucks are all in the market.
Yeah.
So I have no idea if that high bid truck is even still available. So,
Okay.
so at this point, I let them know that we had a meeting today and likely they would have a jack, and they've taken it aside and put it in a sold lot. They quite reluctant to do that, but
Yeah.
Are you saying on the O'Connor one they did
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
So I just have a question that might sound, do we ever consider, or have we looked at any that are 1 or 2 years old where you could save significant, or do we always go to a brand-new vehicle when you're making these purchases?
Yeah, we've always done new. You typically are buying somebody else's headache at that point. And you don't know what you're getting into, and these trucks have to be retrofitted, and it's gonna be a lot harder to retrofit something that is already out there. Finding one that's got the right specs and that you would have to add all the equipment to.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're happy with that one?
I think that'll work for us. Yeah. It's what we got now, so, and that's worked, so.
And what year is the one we have now?
15,
Wow.
it's 10 years old. The primary function of this truck is, through the winter, is to follow the big trucks around and make sure they're putting out the right amount of material in the right place and what these roads look like so that the crew knows what to do next. And so I'm following right behind the calcium and the salt, and I'm getting more of it than most. So that gets into the wiring harnesses, it gets into places you just can't get, so.
Is this a truck you normally drive?
Yeah. And you can stick your fist right through the front fender. And one of the former selectmen saw me about a month ago, and he says, "That's embarrassing."
Yeah.
So, well, we're working on it.
I think we're getting a good deal on that trade-in.
Yeah, it's time to go.
And so just let me clarify here. This is the total, that bid at the end with the total outfitting, which you have broken out here at the end for the extra four-wheel drive, studded snow tires, the graphics, the radio, strobe light, and all that sort of stuff. Is that $7,495 added to our that's included in that $66,370 price?
That's correct.
Total without
Yes.
fitting.
It's the
Perfect,
58,875 plus the 74,900.
Perfect. Well, do I have a motion to approve the preferred bid submitted by Calvin for a 2025 pickup truck?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, any other discussion on the motion?
Does this line up with, the plan? We've been putting money in this bucket,
Yep.
and it's a reasonable expenditure based on what we've been putting in each year. This is what the budget is for.
Yeah, I mean, it
Okay,
was
yeah.
supposed to be replaced last year, but they
Yeah.
were able to get an extra year out of it, and so I think getting 10 years out of a municipal truck that serves this function, if I get 10 years out of my personal truck, I'll be happy. So I think you're doing a good job with that, Calvin.
Does the
so.
truck have any kind of signage on the side?
The new one is going to.
Oh, the new one will have, come with it?
That one
it-
did.
Even though it's not in the outfitting list?
No, it is.
It's
It's on
in
the
the
graphics.
Oh, graphics, got
Yep.
you.
It's gonna have
$1,500.
red stripes on it. It's
Gotcha.
just like we did on the
It's gonna say
550.
"Call
to make it
Calvin" right
fit.
on the side of it, right? It might say "Call Chief." I don't know. Send the complaints that one. All right. Do we have any other discussion on the motion? All in favor? Any opposition? I do want to say I'm just really happy that this system's working well and that you were able to get an extra year out of the truck. I know it was definitely something you would have probably tried to replace last year, but I appreciate the flexibility and keeping up the good work. So.
Another comment, so we heard, this will be in the meeting minutes, but do we want to put anything, other communication out to the community that we're doing this? Just as a matter of transparency?
I think what would be really great is after it's graphicked, if we
Take
put
a
a
picture,
photo up
yeah.
of it then
I
and
know
say,
I know we did discuss it at town meeting, and people asked what we were doing, and we told them this.
Yeah,
that
I think
was-
after it's graphic would be great, and then we could say, Calvin managed to, use the work truck over
Yeah.
10 years, and we were able to put this purchase off till 2025 instead of 2024. We can do a little outreach on that.
Let's get a picture of you with the current truck, and then a picture of you with the new truck.
With your hand inside of the hole.
With a hand on the hole, I could do
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Yeah, we should be proud of the process and the fact that we're supplying you with a truck that is safe, and thank you.
Just real quick, Jess, did you get the motion and the second on that? Okay, perfect. Awesome.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Calvin,
Calvin.
for that.
Okay, did you need me to talk about the internet stuff here, or?
No, I got it.
all set? Okay.
Alrighty, next thing on our agenda here is the town attorney retainer agreement.
Yep.
So, so here's the retainer agreement that.
Thanks, Calvin.
That the attorney gave us. I've read it, I've talked with her, so this is a retainer where she charges the same amount every month. And I don't know what to recommend, I'm waffling to keep it just hourly or sign the retainer, only because we don't have a really good history of how much we're going to use the attorney. And my fear is, if we don't use her that much in a month, we're still gonna get a bill for $12.50. And I don't know what's coming down the road, right? We don't know if battery energy storages are gonna come to town, we don't know. So we only budgeted the $12.50 for 18 months. So you can see what it covers, so I guess what I would recommend is that you take that home and maybe we table this and you all think about what you wanna do. I'm kind of leaning towards just staying on the hourly rate and trying to manage it that way.
How much have you been using the services?
Well, it varies. Some months it's 3,000, another month it's 800.
Do you have the number from when we switched over to Preddy, total amount we've used from them? Like how much we've spent total using them so far?
To date?
To date.
I don't have that number with me right off hand now.
Mm-hmm.
I probably should, I'm not prepared, but we still got like 15 months to go. And I don't like the idea, I don't think, of the retainer right now, because we don't have a good history of, we're using the attorney more than we have in the past.
What, in my understanding here, the normal rate says per hour for municipal law and finance group partners is $265.
Right.
And so 1,250 times 12 is $15,000. 15,000, which is 12 months of retainer. $15,000, but divided by, you follow what I'm saying?
Well, I'm getting, we've got an 18-month.
I know, but I'm just
okay.
using the 1 year as an example.
Okay.
So 12 months at 1,250 per month is a total of $15,000. If we were to be paying hourly at $265, you take that $15,000, divide it by 265, and it works out to less than 57 hours.
Right.
And so our question is, do we think we need the lawyer for more than 4.7 hours a month on the aggregate? If we think about it at that rate, because the other thing in my mind too, and we can maybe table this, but the other thing in my mind too is when you're on a pay-as-you-go, you start asking, is it worth calling about this because we're going to have to pay? Whereas if we're on a retainer, it's, well, we've already paid for this month, we might as well make the call or do the engagement. So I know anytime that I'm, I think back when I had to pay for text messages, I was really cautious as to whether I sent the text. Now that's unlimited, I do what I want, right? And I'm kind of thinking of it, same deal. You follow what I'm saying? Like, I don't want us to be holding back on when we reach out to use our lawyer because we're trying to save the money. And I think that we have the opportunity as well to use our lawyer more than we have in the past. So that's just my food for thought. We don't have to make the decision right now.
We still will use MMA when we can for the routine stuff, because that, they provide that service. And if I got an answer from MMA that wasn't really defined, it really didn't tell me, then I would have her review that, because she's more apt to tell you, no, this is what you need to do.
Is there a
Sometimes
benefit though too if we have the lawyer and retainer just using our lawyer rather than going through MMA to build that relationship and have her up to speed on all conversations and concerns?
I worry about the budget, managing the actual budget. That's my concern. It's not so much, we'll get help one way or the other from MMA or her. It's how much we want to use her.
So I guess, because one of the things that we have to do is set our goals for the select board for the year. So when is this due back?
It's not,
Okay.
we need to just decide, because we have her as an attorney.
Yeah.
So we just keep going the way we're going until we decide if this is the way we want to go. If I had in the budget figured the 1250 times 18 and then added, say, another 5,000 or 6,000, then I'd be more comfortable with that, right? Because there'd be a little cushion built in above that 1250 that she's gonna bill every month.
Has she been charging us for, or has the company been charging us for the times that,
Oh, yeah,
they charge us extra over the 1250?
We haven't, we're not into the 1250
We're out.
payment yet.
Anytime she's here, she's getting paid $2.65 an hour right now.
Right.
So
This will
she's-
kick in the 1250 an hour.
Okay, so let's remember, we talked about this in the budgeting process, and we made some cases that it was the way to go, and that created the budget line for the attorney of this.
Well,
you
we
know,
always had a
1250.
budget line for the
Right,
attorney.
yeah,
But we
I said that
budgeted
wrong.
for
We budgeted,
the
the amount on the
retainer.
line was this 1250 idea for 18 months. And I remember there was discussion about whether that made sense. I think someone from the budget committee was questioning it.
Yeah, but I'm not concerned so much with what the budget committee thinks or says, because they're not really involved into the management of the budget and how much we use.
Yeah, I think my point was that when that discussion was happening, we, the select board, you know, we had some arguments on why it was the right way to go with a retainer fee versus the per hour. And that all can change, you know,
Right.
circumstances change, so I'm just
Right.
bringing
Yeah,
that up
because
as.
I understand what you're saying, Deb,
Yeah.
because my impression was that we budgeted for, I thought we voted to budget for retainer for 18 months.
Right.
And
but-
so, I'm confused as to where the concern would be about needing more than that if we said, all right, the retainer's gonna be $12.50 a month times 18, we're good there.
So,
But they raised it.
well, and not only that, you can see what the retainer is
Right.
going to cover.
Right,
We didn't have that before. This is just routine stuff.
right.
If we get into anything larger and more complicated, it's gonna be above and beyond that retainer fee.
You know, let me take, yeah.
So I think where you're just getting, I've had time to digest this, and you folks haven't.
Yeah.
Maybe you take it home and think about how you wanna go. I'm just saying which way that I think I would lean. And you all can go however you'd like.
Right.
To me, the one that concerns me is, in 3F, the retainer fees only covers remote attendance, which we don't do at these meetings. And, you know, if it were like, you know, one meeting a quarter, that might make me feel more comfortable, but, you know, we've been with them for 11 months, is that right? It says June 18th of last year, so about 11 months. And she's been to 6 meetings or
Right.
so?
Yeah, I mean, it says right here, in-person attendance was out of scope.
Yeah.
Right, and so, I mean, I tend to agree with you, Jerry. If this included like one meeting a quarter or something like that,
Yeah,
I'd be much more inclined. Or if we had a way to use remote attendance,
Yeah, that's a good point, Josh.
I would be much more inclined to say, let's jump at this, because, you know, if you spend less than 75% of that $12.50 a month, then it gets put back in and it lowers your bill for the next month,
Right.
which I really appreciate, because I don't think a lot of people are gonna do that for us. And I also think, I mean, look, when I left private practice in 2019, I was charging more than this on certain cases an hour. So I think the hourly rates are fair.
Yeah.
And so, but for me, our need is going to be the in-person meetings, and where this doesn't cover that, it's a little disappointing. And that's where the biggest expense is gonna be, right? Coming here and sitting through our almost 2-hour meeting already.
Right.
And, you know, with the hope, you know, I think one of the goals we've kind of discussed, maybe not as a goal, but we've talked about is, what are we gonna do to bring in some more business, some more money to take the burden off the homeowners, which is essentially 99% of our taxes right now. And that's going to take time and bringing an attorney in to these meetings. And so makes me a little nervous without seeing some type of recognition of that, or us having a way to do remote meetings. I mean, if we were able to get her on the screen, and have her there, yeah, that might make me feel comfortable, because I think that for 75-80% of what we need in our conversations would be sufficient. But I think there are some, like if there is a BES situation that comes up, that's going to be multiple meetings in person. Remote is not going to be appropriate for most of that. And so that's my concern with this. I just wish there were some, like, if it were a meeting a quarter and we could, do that, that'd be great. As it is, it's 2 routine trainings a year. I guess which we're paying for is it at our next meeting.
I think there's just a lot of outside of the scope of, now that you point that out, it's just this, I think that your point, Jerry, about after getting the retainer agreement from them, there's a lot missing, that does put a different light on it for me.
Right, now, if we had figured the $1,250 for the 18 months, I think it's like 22,000 total. And during the budget process, we said, well, let's make that 30. I would be more comfortable signing that, but when this only covers the retainer,
Right,
I'm a little reluctant,
It makes it really difficult for you to budget with
Exactly.
that. And I think going forward, knowing that this is the scope of the agreement, in the next budget cycle, I think it's something we can budget for. But like I said, my concern is you get one big thing.
Right.
Exactly.
And I'm taking out there's a lawsuit or something like those things that we don't see very often. Not including those, because those are always going to be extra, and those are going to be surprises. And we're playing with fire, not budgeting any money for that to begin with. But with the stuff, I think we've, as a group, collectively spoken about from last year, what you've been sort of pushing us to do. It seems, in my mind, there's going to be a lot of in-person meetings. If we get everything off the ground and start working on things, and I think for the budget this year, because we budgeted just the 1,250 times 18, we're just running the risk, and
Right.
there's not a lot of room in our budget, and you need to know how to appropriately budget this line item, which makes me concerned about why are we having her come in for an hour-long presentation plus all the prep work for something that we can do online, or we could maybe get MMA to do. I agree with you. I'm not sure this is the right time for us to do something like this.
And just to bring it up, it's like when we talked about bringing her in for FOA training. Personally, I don't think that's the best use of her time.
Right.
Because, look, everybody that's on these committees, they're adults, they can do their own FOA training.
Yeah,
The
right on
town
that.
doesn't have to spend tax dollars training them. Because
So
I
convinced me,
get
Jerry.
nervous because I'm the one that has to manage the budget, and I get it, let's do this, let's do that, and I'm like, well, wait a second,
yeah.
right? So,
I'm ready to
Just
move along.
Yeah.
I'm
and maybe
I'm good
next
that we
budget
can just
season,
delay,
we can bring this up again and talk about it, and if we wanna add more on top of the retainer, we can have that discussion. Now, keep in mind, at town meeting, the budget committee wanted to cut this, was one of the ones they wanted to cut, remember? So, that's why, I don't mean to be sure, but I can't get into their reasoning, because they're not into it like we are.
I think that what you've said to us is just pointing out the scope of what's not covered. that clarified my concern. When I first looked at it, I was just like, oh, this seems like a lot's covered, and I realized, no, not a lot's covered of the things that we would anticipate using, so, I'm fine with staying in the way we are now.
Yeah.
Do I have a motion to reject the attorney retainer agreement?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Second. Any further discussion?
I would just say, you know, if we could come up with a method of allowing remote attendance in our meetings like that, which would save us probably a lot of money, either route we take
Yeah.
with this, I think that's worth exploring.
We either explore remote regardless.
I mean, why can't she call in through a Zoom link? Just her?
I think our rules say something about remote attendance for board members, and I don't know what we've done.
You can look into it.
Yeah.
The other
I've
challenge
seen
too
it
is because
look
we're
into-
live streamed, then getting her on the screen, we'd have to figure something out there,
Right.
so.
It's
something to look at,
Blast
yeah,
it right
TV.
up there on that TV.
Yeah,
now that we
yeah.
have that.
and if we could do something like that, so it's included in the live stream, you know, that might change my mind, but I just think, you know, with the hope for the things that we want to do, it's like the third time I've said it, you know,
Right.
the hope to lessen the burden by bringing in, you know, if we can, you know, doing a best negotiation if that comes up, or, you know,
Or anything. It could
right,
be
it could
Right.
be anything.
Yeah, I mean, you've convinced me, so.
So I would ask that we explore that though, because
Yeah.
that might change my mind, because that, to me, that's the biggest thing missing is having her, you know,
Yeah.
come, and you know, and she's come, and, you know, we're gonna have this money, plus it's gonna, you know, at $2.65 an hour, we're gonna be that, it's not included in this, so it's gonna be extra, and then we've already overspent.
Right, right,
And-
right.
and-
Pay for her travel time too.
And we pay for travel, and, you know, the budget, we were less than 1% last year,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
we're probably close, and this is an 18-month budget, it's, you know, I don't like going against what we all supported, but at the same time, it doesn't make much sense to do it under these circumstances, and
I'm good
so-
to vote on it, so I think we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
So, any other discussion on the motion? All in favor? Any opposition? Seeing none. I think that's elucidated a lot of good points there, Josh. For the current needs, but this will be good flexibility. Alrighty. Jessica, did you get the motion second on that? Okay. Alright, manager report.
All right, got a little bit here for you to absorb. So first thing is, the search bar is now on our webpage.
Is that a Google search bar?
It is indexed, so we'll look at our website.
I'm looking at it right now.
So, yeah, it's up in the top right, so we got that done.
Jessica's smiling, so it must be working well so far.
Yeah, I don't, have you
It's
used it?
done, that's all I'm doing.
Look at that.
So that, you know, they did that last week, I think, right up there. So, that's good. Just wanna give you, so our opera reporting, we have to report to the fuzz where all of our ARPA money went. So that is complete, we're in good shape. The only additions that I'll have to make is when we expend more money, either the codification or the fire, or the Quint, then I'll have to update the expenditures, but we obligated every penny they gave us, and it's all, so we're up to date on that. Those federal reporting sites can be very, confusing and everything, but, we're in good shape there, so.
Do we have a summary of, that we could look at?
I can send
The
it to you.
split?
Yeah, I can send it to you if you wanna see that. You don't have it.
I think it'd be, no, I think it'd just be kind of
Yeah,
nice
just
to
to see where we
understand, like,
spent
this
that.
is where we ended up, this is,
I can send that to you. Let me write that down.
And I think to your point, that one thing that, you know, people erroneously refer to ARPA money as like free money. Well, it's really our tax money, just taken outside of our municipal taxes. And I think it's cool for us to be able to show, that's tax money that you've already paid, we brought back to the community, here's how we spent it.
yeah.
So you guys got a letter or something about the Androscoggin Budget Committee letter of interest,
Yes.
have people, so no one in town was interested, so that was due today, so there'll be no one here.
Can we elect one of us? Because one of them had to be.
Yeah.
Sorry, can you remind me what that letter was?
Just to have some representation from Durham on the, Androscoggin Budget Committee.
Oh, and the county commissioners, yeah.
So,
And it was 3 meetings,
yeah.
3.
Three
We
meetings,
had it out there,
when?
Mhm.
no one,
3 meetings
no one had
total
any interest.
in a year, or 3 meetings a month?
Oh,
Oh, no.
no, only 3 meetings a month.
Yeah, it's a year.
Okay.
So,
So that's why nobody wanted.
Is anybody willing to do it? I can't do it since I work for
The county,
a department.
yeah. I feel like Heather might have been interested, but she didn't say anything.
She's got a lot going on,
Yeah.
too.
What about you, Deb?
She's not here, I don't mind nominating her.
That would be great.
but anyway,
I think
something-
Deb's a maybe right now.
Yeah, I think maybe I could probably do it.
When are they due?
That was due, the letters were due today.
They
Oh,
probably wouldn't
so we've
mind
already
having
missed it.
one day late.
For the residents, if
For
you
the-
guys wanna attend, you could still attend.
Right, this was,
Okay.
to get,
Not just attend, but be part of the committee.
Yeah, so you would go and it's like a caucus and you would have someone nominate like you and then you'd be up for being on the committee.
Yeah, I think we should have someone there, and I think I'm a good candidate as anyone. I don't, wow.
I can resend the letter to you guys.
When's-
I think I
what's-
had the letter in my
yeah.
email.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I was reading it over.
Yeah, I don't have the capacity, unfortunately, to do it, so.
So I would nominate that to be the select board nominee.
I'll accept the nomination.
I'll second the note.
Alright,
Nominate, accept, and second.
yeah, yeah.
Good.
All in
All in
favor
favor?
of having Deb do it? Any opposition?
Thank
can
you.
vote
Thank
for
you,
yourself.
Deb.
There you go, Deb. No, I think that'd be really great to have you as part of that.
I think it's
I think
important, and I think
Yeah,
you'll
we
do a
should have
good job.
rep, and
And
I like
mean,
meeting new people.
Yeah, well, and I also think that we have other regional things that I'm a part of, and I think it's good to spread that out
Yeah.
from our representation, so.
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't mind going to support you if you tell me when.
Okay.
okay, all right, so bulky waste went well despite the weather.
Yes.
Just to let you know, we had 250 household participate
Wow, that's
with 18 repeaters, meaning they went back and,
That was my husband.
what was it?
All 18 of them, okay.
All I do.
I think next year we should probably talk about how we manage this too. You've got 4,200 subsidizing 250 people, so
Mhm.
there might be a way to get some revenue if you wanted to do it that way, but we can talk about that.
Do we-
Which what I would recommend.
Do you have the numbers from last year?
I don't know whether we did.
We've never tracked the data.
That's
Percent.
part of like why it's not really well managed, 'cause that's why I got a little nervous when you all wanted to put signs out on that, because people from Pownell, Freeport see that,
Yeah.
then they, and
Mhm.
yeah, we don't, without maybe them possibly coming to town to get a voucher to hand to somebody that they are actually from Durham, there's really no way to monitor that.
Check licenses.
Right, but if they had a
Well, and I mean Calvin, I don't know. Might have been the first time I went. I'm pretty sure Calvin checked my license or registration.
It might be worth a discussion before next year's vote, to see how we might be able to better manage that.
Do we also know how much money was made with things that people had to pay to bring in?
$30 for me.
Wow.
And I appreciate that because I've been
So
too lazy to bring it somewhere. And
after we pay our bills, I think it was under $100. that
Oh,
we made
really?
revenue, yeah.
But that payment paid the bills for it.
No,
Well, I
we
mean,
budget
the budget.
$10,000
The budget.
in the town budget to
Yeah, so
cover
sorry,
it.
I should
I see.
mention, so Calvin had someone come, and remove refrigerant. So before you could not bring anything that had a Freon in it.
Yeah,
So this year you could,
Mhm.
and you had to pay $10.
yeah.
And then so after Calvin paid that person their
I see.
service,
I mean, I do think one of the merits of bulky waste day is it prevents bulky waste from being dropped off on the side of roads and
Yes.
at the boat launches and stuff like that, so.
I was surprised about the public comment on that. I didn't really realize that a select board member attendance was important to people. And maybe it was just important to the resident who spoke, but I was thinking,
Oh,
wow, that's
So
interesting.
Mark said something to me, we had a few minute conversation, and I can't remember the name of the person he was with right now. But, you know, he wasn't, I think he thought it would be nice if some of us went. But I don't think he necessarily cared as much as Mark
Oh, right.
did.
Yeah.
And I, you know, I would have stayed, but I had plans with my daughter.
I don't think it's tradition, in the time that I've been on the board, it's not like anyone's ever been like, I'm gonna be the board member who goes and attends bulky waste day.
You could say, I'm from the select board and I'm checking your license.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just
I'll
thought
do
the
that.
comment was interesting, and had I known it, someone thought that was important, I would
Yeah.
have probably went and
I want, yeah, I mean,
dished out coffee.
I don't think I've ever seen, I mean, I've gone almost for many, many years, I've never seen somebody like checking or, yeah,
Right.
and I would have loved to go this year, 'cause I actually love it. I love seeing them crush everything, but it's, yeah, I was
Yeah.
working, but,
I told Mark that one year I got yelled at for getting out of my car because he didn't want people out of their cars. So I didn't think, I mean, I still do it because like I had 3 air conditioners I was getting rid of. I'm like, why are you guys lifting all my air conditioners when I was just too lazy to bring it somewhere else? So that's, you know, that's why I didn't plan on going.
I've never gone because I've never thrown anything out there. I didn't realize there was like a spectator component of it, so.
Who knew?
that's new-
I mean,
new to
Oh,
me.
I love it. It's my favorite day of the year.
I do too.
My favorite day.
Okay.
What else you got, Jerry?
I got just a little bit more.
Sorry.
So, Public
worries.
Works hired a new person to replace the person that left. They started yesterday.
It's the mechanic?
No, the
No.
mechanic's still there. It was a truck
Oh,
driver.
truck driver, okay.
So his name's Ron Burns, and welcome Ron to the
Welcome,
town.
Ron.
So,
Welcome around.
Public Works should post about, on their Facebook about the new hire. Because if not, they'll be like, we'll get someone who'll be like, there's someone I've never seen in a Durham jacket doing something in this cemetery, what's going on?
yeah.
Heather can handle that.
Yeah.
So we've got a quote to get the internet over to.
Sorry, what was that?
sorry.
We got a quote to get internet over to the Eureka.
Yeah.
Which is basically boosting it from here. There'll be 2 boosters, one on that building, one on this one. It'd be safe and secure, you know, it wouldn't compromise the fire. It's $2,578, so if you wanna discuss that, whether you wanna do that, let me know.
Can we put it on discussion topic for next agenda? Because
It's one flat fee and no monthly fee?
Right,
It's just a
It's just-
booster.
it's
yeah,
just
just
yeah.
a booster.
Yeah,
hop, skip, and jump in the signal over.
Is the rest of the board on next meeting?
that's fine.
Yeah, I just don't want to
Yeah.
vote on something on a fiscal note that hasn't been on the.
Yeah, right, that's why I'm just bringing it to your attention.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good topic to put on to next meeting.
Okay.
Was it only one, did you just reach out to somebody?
Yeah, our IT provider,
Okay,
yeah.
probably the right person to do
But
it.
we have heard a lot of people wanting better connectivity over there,
Yeah,
so.
it's up to you, we can take it out of the, building reserves if you decide to do it. We certainly don't have it in the operating budget.
Yeah, no.
Right.
All right, so just gonna let you know that, as far as the IT folks, so we got a new server, right? So to migrate everything over, they're working on that. Well, to migrate Trio over, it's gonna cost us $1,250, so, which wasn't budgeted for either, so I just kinda, because I had no idea, they're migrating our own data, so typically, I never would've guessed that that was the case, so I just wanna bring that to your attention too. So, and another thing too, is the GA requests, we're getting a lot more coming in. I mean, we've had more this year since January that we've had the 2 years that I've been here.
Mhm.
And we only budget 1,000 for that, so that may,
So what happens if there's more requests than there is budgeted? Like, at some point, do we say we don't have any more money for
No.
GA?
no,
Okay.
no. We get 70% of it back, but we've already sent out almost 800 already of the 1,000 we have budgeted.
Mm.
Hopefully we'll get 70% of that back, but I'm not sure what's going on, but
What
just
is
want
the
you to be
GA?
able to, it's general assistance. So
Oh, okay.
if
Mhm.
folks need help with
Yep.
food or,
And there's some pretty strict, like, this is mandated, the requirements of like income level
Mhm.
yeah.
per household and number of people is dictated by the state.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Jess and I work together on that, just does a good job, and we go through it. We actually had some GA training this morning.
How frequently can someone make a GA request?
It's every 30 days.
Oh,
The same person?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. We have one that's in a recovery, so
mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna get into any more than
Sure.
that,
Mhm.
but I'm just letting you know, we only budget 1,000, so I am thankful with like what I'm seeing that we have that contingency now, cause 18-month budget, I can see.
Yeah, because there has not been, like you said, in the first 2 years, we weren't spending anything out of there. It's just been a carryover.
And we're mandated by state law to carry this out, so
To give
it's
you
like
a,
we don't have a choice.
to give you a point of perspective, in some of our larger municipalities like Portland, their GA line is more than our entire town budget. You know, so
Do we get prompt reimbursement from the state, or is it a
It's
delay?
every quarter.
Oh, every
So your
quarter.
reimbursement, you can do quarterly,
yeah.
so we're getting ready to do one right now, right,
Yeah, the second
for
quarter.
the second quarter.
Yeah, we'll want to stay on top of that
Oh,
from a
yeah.
cash flow
Yeah,
perspective.
Yeah.
we'll do our best.
Could you keep us updated regularly on the status of that?
Absolutely.
If it's
Sure.
gonna be an issue, like us to know sooner than later, so we can start talking about a contingency option.
Yeah, that wouldn't come into play until the end of the year,
Mhm.
because we're gonna fund it regardless, and we're gonna,
Yeah, but I'd still like that running update, so we
Right.
know if we're over that
Okay.
line through the year. Yeah.
Next one is, we got a letter from the Social Security office, and basically what happened was the W-3s, the 2022 payroll didn't get submitted. So they said they had been reaching out to the town, but it's been crickets, but the staff hadn't seen any letter. And I asked Burgess to go through all the emails to see if we got anything from, with an IRS or a Social Security extension. They said they didn't find anything. But when you miss a reporting thing like that, you can get penalized. So right now, the potential penalty amount for not turning that in is $83,677. I don't think they'll do it. I've written an abatement apology on behalf of the town saying, we had staff turnover. People thought they may have done it, but it didn't get done. Explaining that, this is the first time that it's happened to the town.
Can you what is it that has happened? Can you when you
So
can you
when you know how you get your W-2s at the end of the year,
Mhm.
that automatically generates a W-3 that gets turned into the Social Security office. That didn't happen.
It's just a report, or is it money?
It's a report.
It's just a report, and
Yeah.
it's an $83,000 potential
Yeah.
penalty?
So what happens is, the federal government and the Social Security talk to them and say, okay, this is what we got for numbers, what did you get for numbers? They're saying, we didn't get anything. So they said they were reaching out to the town to get those over the last couple of years, but we haven't seen anything. So
You said
it's-
Burgess looked. Who's Burgess?
Internet.
The IT company
Yeah.
looked through and didn't
The
find
emails,
anything.
and didn't find any emails, so,
Yeah.
once we got the letter, once I got the letter, we took prompt action, and you can read the letter right here.
Mhm.
That got sent. Hopefully, they're gonna be like, don't worry about it, it's your first time, we're gonna let you go. Other towns have made the same mistake when they hire folks that don't really know, and they don't get them trained, and they don't know they do it. Sometimes you get assessed a $25,000 penalty, so I don't know what they're gonna do. They got that letter, they got their file. I'm gonna wait to hear from them and see where it lands.
How quickly did you get in the file after you got this letter?
3 days,
Okay.
4 days.
And then have you made some process changes so guaranteed will
Yeah, we
meet
have
the
a payroll
commitment?
company that knows what, we have a payroll.
Oh, the
company.
pay-
So this was a 2022 issue.
Yeah, this
It
is
has not
22.
happened in 23 and did not
No.
happen in
Right.
24.
No, because
Okay.
once, you can read the letter, it
Yeah.
explains it, exactly how it went. So once I figured out that we didn't really have the capacity in-house to do it, we got a payroll system to do it, so they take care of it now.
Gotcha.
You know, so it should be good. But we'll see what they say. I don't know. We sent it certified, so we haven't got our card back, but they've actually received that letter in that W-3, so.
So this took place right before you started?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know that number's a little scary.
Can you send us all a copy of this in
Sure.
an email, please, just so we have it?
Absolutely. You don't have, there's nothing for you to vote on. so-
No, I know, but just
Right.
for us to have.
It's a lot of GA funding.
It sure is.
Yeah,
So I'm just keeping you abreast to that.
good,
all right?
thank you.
So the next one is, there is no way we're going to get through the year without getting a tax anticipation note. We just don't have the funds, because we've got that gap between August and October, because typically our taxes would be due like in the middle of August, well now they're due in the middle of October. Even though we'll do the commitment at the same time, and some people will pay their taxes, they won't be due until October 15th, so we need to get a TAN to carry us through. The TAN amount, and I'm working with Freddie Flaherty, they have what they call a bond council. So I'm working with them, gave them all the information, Mark and I are working on that. We've already worked on it, we've given it to Freddie Flaherty. I have a meeting with Andrew Scottish Bank on the 20th, which is next Tuesday, I think, to go over that. But $2,630,000 is what we're gonna put in for. And we only pay the interest on what we use, okay? The concern is, we also didn't budget for the interest in the budget, okay? So I don't know what that interest amount's gonna be until we get through it.
Did they give us a rate?
Yeah, it's gonna be somewhere between 5 and 6. I'm meeting with them on the 20th to find out between 5 and 6%.
Well, we haven't sent out the notices. Why do we have to wait to make the taxes due in October? And we're only doing half of them.
Right, so
So-
when you change fiscal years, we change the election date to twice, October 15th and April
But-
15th.
There's nothing in the law that says it has to be those 2 dates,
No, but that's typical though, they're
No.
6 months apart.
but. So,
Right.
my response is so.
It doesn't really matter because if we only get half collection, it doesn't matter if we get half collection in October, if we get half collection in August. If we only get half collection, we still have to manage cash flow until the next half collection, unless when we submit the bill, everyone decides to pay their full tax bill in October.
Yeah, but you still have less that you might have to go potentially grab.
I think it
interest
just
rate.
moves it to a different time that we'd have to grab it though. Because it's still gonna be the same cash flow analysis because you have two major collections rather than one.
We've only got enough money to get us to the end of July,
Mm-hmm.
so this has to be in place by July 1st.
Yeah.
It's a cash flow thing, it isn't, you know.
It's just because this year we're having that 18-month.
Well, I think Durham's gotten TANs before even.
Yeah, no, it's
I-
not since you've been here though,
Right,
but
not since, right.
no, we've
That's
gotten
just the nature
TANs.
of it, and just keeping you just informed on that. You will have to sign the paperwork,
Mhm.
which we don't. But we should have it in place by July 1st.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to take any chances, we don't want to go.
Yeah.
We need the money to pay the bills.
Yeah, no, it's better to have
And-
it
and it's
available.
unfortunate, because, I mean, like in September, we pay the county, and we have 2 bond payments that come out, so that
Mhm.
really hurts. If we didn't have those 2, we might not have to borrow so much.
Mhm.
But that's where we're at.
I mean, that's to Josh's point, well, if we collected before September, we'd have more cash on hand to make those payments though.
I
But
mean,
if we're gonna have a cash management problem in July, it doesn't matter.
Just remember we made that brochure and
We
we
made the
blasted
brochure.
those dates.
Well, I'm saying, I'm not saying we change it,
Yeah.
we made that contract with the town, that agreement with the people. I'm just thinking out loud, really.
Donna has to do her work to be able to.
Yeah.
And she's nervous about even in August, or late June,
She's gonna June 28th.
yeah, and she's, she has to get her work done to be able to just do that.
That's the way that Josh, thank you.
Right, they'll go out, but the due date is still October.
I don't know, I think people would be happier to pay the taxes earlier than expected to save
And that-
however much in interest.
And that might be true, like I said, we're only gonna pay interest on what we use, and, that's hard to know at this point.
Well, the earlier the bill goes out, the better. Even if it's the same due date.
So I'll keep you posted on that, so we're gonna start the bank on the 20th, I'm assuming you wanna stick with the same bank and not go out to bid for that. Typically, you stay with the people that have your accounts all set up.
I defer to your judgment on that, unless someone else has a strong opinion.
As long as they're not still mad at you for moving all that other money.
Yeah,
That's a good letter.
right, so
Yeah.
this kinda summed it up pretty
Yeah,
good.
it's very
Yeah.
good, and, yeah, it's very good.
So, I don't know if that's, I don't think the sky's falling, hopefully they'll be, play nice, but I don't know. I don't know, I don't have a crystal ball, but that, concludes my manager report.
It was action-packed.
Yes.
It was, wasn't it? There's a lot of care about going on right there.
To keep us on time here, we'll move quick through these next 9 minutes. Chair report, I'm gonna have, I get a letter in my inbox today that I just peeked as I came into here. That was a formal complaint about the use of this space for meetings from a prior fire chief, not our current chief. And I just was gonna have someone from the office please scan that and deliver it via email to all of us so we can talk about it next meeting. I just got it on the way in today, and so didn't want to address it tonight.
He did whisper in my ear that he wanted it on the agenda, and I said, I'll check with the chair.
Yeah, I got it at 6 o'clock. So,
Yeah.
and if we feel the need to invite anyone in after we address that, we'll put it on the agenda for review next week though. But it's functionally the same as like any other complaint. They just didn't fill out a complaint form. So, but that's all I have for a board member report there. Just letting you all know that you'll see that in your inbox sometime this week or next. Josh,
I have stuff, but with the time, I'll wait.
you don't want to do at least one of them?
No.
All right. No Heather? Deb?
Just the solid waste committee is right now down to 3 members, so we're anxiously awaiting the review of the candidates, applicants, to move that group up to, we're at 4 members, to add a member and then an alternate member. So I know that's on an upcoming agenda. And the team had Casella come and talk about the pay-as-you-throw program. It was a good discussion. And appreciate the website being updated to provide information to the residents about options for disposing of different waste. And that's been updated. I think it's in the bulletin memo newsletter that goes out. So anyway, making progress there with Juliet as the chair on the solid waste.
All right, Rebecca.
Nothing.
All right, Josh, since I was so fast, do you want
No, because it's.
to one and only? All right.
it's,
In that regard, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposition? Seeing none. All right, upcoming meetings, RSU 5 Board of Directors meeting, May 14th, 5:45.
It's 6. I thought it was 6:30.
So they're doing an RSU 5 Board of Directors meeting right before the Tri-Town.
Oh.
So that's their regular and the tri-town's gonna start at 6:30. Voters can come at 6 to start checking in.
Do you want, cause I'm going, or should one of us be there early for their meeting, or that's not allowed?
We don't usually attend that meeting, do we? The select board?
No?
The RSU 5 board of directors? No, we don't.
But it's open.
It's
No,
open, but we don't usually.
No, I know, I'm
It's
going
as a
just to
voter.
go.
Oh yeah,
as a
no,
voter,
there's
but,
no,
like,
your job here doesn't impact your
Right,
ability to
okay.
do any of that stuff. No, you're fine.
No, but I just meant like for when they're meeting at 5:45, should one of us be represented to be there, since I'm already going later?
No, we don't
No,
send in
we don't need
someone as an official
That's
board
fine, yeah.
representative to that, no. Conservation Commission's May 21st at 6:30. Town office is gonna be closed Memorial Day the 26th, and the next select board meeting is gonna be May 27th, 2025 at the fire station at 6:30. Do we need an executive session? Alright, seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
A motion to
Oh,
adjourn.
Deb motion, Josh second, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposition? Seeing none? Meeting adjourned at 8:55.
Thank you. Phyllis, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow night at the next meeting.
know, the other
Yeah.